Hey, what up, buddy? No problem, man. We'll get right into it in a bit. Let's get right into it. Okay, YouTube video's good. Okay. Yeah, I saw your comment, Malayo Gamer. I didn't get to respond, but I assume it has to do with Nazis. Maybe the moon. Maybe some badass music with a side of reptilian Hitler. Dash of Sarah Palin, maybe. Am I right? Am I close? Am I close? All the YouTube stuff is done. Oh my god, they make a sequel? They made a sequel? So, I assume, forgive me if you said this yesterday, but you didn't see the movie. You just heard of it, and you've heard of the music, right? And you just saw it. And you just saw it on the app. Oh, Hitler's in the second film. Okay. I need to see this fucking movie, dude. On the Voodoo app. I need to look at this. I need to find this. What the fuck? Hold on. Dude. Hold on. Dude, this movie was in theaters. Hold on. But it was, yeah, it was banned in America, so this can't be for America. This looks like it's from America. Iron Sky, The Coming Race. Wait a minute. This might be something different. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I'm not gonna jump down a rabbit hole. I gotta watch this movie. And it's free. So if it's banned in America, can I still see it? Can we still see it then? Can I stream this movie one day? Can we just like stream this movie together? Alright, hold on. Let me get the Sam Cedar stuff ready. The stuff we're gonna listen to. Okay. Should watch party. That would be cool. I have to figure out if I can see this. If I can, how can I get it on my computer? What is Voodoo? Let me see. Hold on. Can I just like pull it up? Hold on. And you said it's this is all free. Hold on. Iron Sky. Oh my god, it's here for free. It's 93 minutes. It's got 3 stars. Hold on, let me see. Oh, wait. Watch for free or rent. Hold on. In the last moments of World War II, a secret Nazi space program evaded destruction by making a daring escape to the moon. In the intervening 20 years, they have recolonized, rearmed, devastating new weapons, suddenly by applying the revenge. Watch an American astronaut stumbles upon the secret moon lair. The Fuhrer decides to unleash the Armageddon upon the unprepared Earth. Now every man, woman, and child must unite to repel the UFO Nazi invasion and save humanity. Let me just see what this... It's got 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. Can I just like click it and watch? Is it really this simple, Millennial Gamer? Enjoyed the film. Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes is Rotten Tomatoes is mostly for critics. I don't know if that takes into account like the viewers, the general public. If I sign in, I'll be able to like just watch it, right? I have to look into this later. Oh. Okay. We should do a watch party. We absolutely should. I think that would be so fucking crazy if we could just get this on Twitch and just like hang out. I don't think YouTube would be too kind to it. I think Twitch would be more okay. He's having a great... Yeah, I don't have an account, so I'll look into it later. I'll look into it afterwards. And maybe we could do this. Maybe instead of me going to Politicon, this is what I was supposed to be doing this weekend with you guys. Just watch this Iron Sky. I'm down for that. I'll get popcorn. Well, I'll get popcorn. I'll get drinks. Fuck. Maybe this Sunday? Maybe. Yeah, but I'll look into it. I don't know how Twitch feels about watching TV shows, but it's for free, so I don't know why there'd be an issue. But regardless, I don't want to get the ban hammer. Okay. Let's do this for now. Let's work for now. And see how much we can get done. Okay. Everything's good. Everything sounds good. Yep. Everything is good. I fucking hit myself on the freaking door. Fucking burns like a bitch. Ow. All right. Let us continue with this one. Simply titled Sam Cedar versus Libertarian Caller. And begin.
Go to Brian calling from New Jersey. Welcome to the program, Brian.
Hey, Sam, this is your daily reminder that you're a hypocrite and cheap.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Brian. You want to be more explicit?
Oh, no, it's me again. It's your old friend, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see it now. And if we could all watch it together, like, I think that'd be kind of cool. That would be kind of dope.
Yeah.
This Sam Cedar video is already off to a great start.
I still think
You don't have to lie, incidentally, Jim. I mean, we don't have to lie to get on the program.
Good old Jim.
You asked what?
You don't have to lie to get on the program.
Oh, I thought you'd kind of be blocking my calls from now on.
I think that'd be a great way if I could finish this by the end of this week, and then we could be like, yo, let's just chill back, let's just watch this stupid movie. I think that'd be dope. Sorry, I'm actually giving myself a carrot at the end of the string. Or I guess that's how you would say it. I'm giving myself a carrot. You know, something to aim for. Sure. You know what I mean.
No, I'm just waiting for you to say something that's reasonably intelligent.
You're waiting for me to say something reasonably intelligent. You said that if both candidates were going to build concentration camps, you would support whoever was building less, and you want me to say something reasonably intelligent.
Yes.
Sam, you are a fool. You pundits are what's wrong with this country. You and Rush Limbaugh and Bill Maher and Glenn Beck, you're all cut from the same cloth. You are spreading
Well, then let me ask you this, Jim. Jim, let me ask you this.
Arrogance.
Let me ask you this. Where do I line up to get their cash?
Where do you line up to get there? It doesn't matter where you line up. You're all the same. You're all causing problems for this country.
I am causing problems for this country. What problem am I causing, Jim?
As I said, you and Limbaugh and Maher and Beck, you're all.
Well, let's just focus on me.
I'm right.
I have to
just
see what's up
focus
with
on
Twitch.
me.
We'll see.
Let's just
I don't
focus
think
on
it
me.
is.
What problem?
To be honest, like I've seen Twitch streamers stream like television shows. Like there's some people that stream Shark Tank. I don't know about movies, but this is a movie that was banned in America, so I don't think the copyright police are out for like people watching this movie. So I don't know. And I assume there are people like, are there streamers that like watch Netflix shows? Like, is that a thing? I can't imagine that. I imagine that's a thing, but we'll see. We'll see. It'll be okay. I think it'll be okay.
My causing, not the other ones, just me.
You're pushing the idea that you're always right. Everyone has to agree with you, and anyone who disagrees with you in the slightest way is evil or stupid.
Now, wait a second, Jim. Now, Jim, hold on for a second. Let's just replay for a second. You call up to tell me this is your daily reminder to me that I am a hypocrite and a sheep. And now you are saying that the problem with me is that I call people who call me in, and then you also say that I'm a fool. And then you tell me that the problem with me is that I think that people who disagree with me are what?
Yeah, and I am, all right, it does seem like a bit of a double standard, I know, but I am not willing to...
Would you call that
having...
hypocrisy, Jim?
I wouldn't act this way to you if you didn't act this way towards other people who disagree with you.
Like who?
I know plenty of liberals who have policies I disagree with, but I get along well with them because they are social about it. They don't go to attacks. I know plenty of conservatives who have policies I disagree with.
Jim, are you the guy who writes me all the curse-laden emails?
Maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
You know, Jim, I'll tell you what happens at this point, okay? What happens at this point is I get IMs and emails saying, Jim's not real. Jim is a fake caller. Come on, Sam, give up the ghost. But, Jim, I want you to tell my audience that you are, in fact, real, that we didn't plan this in any way, that the things you're saying I haven't scripted for you, that you're actually saying these things.
I am. I'm a real person, and I'm fed up with you and the rest of your ilk.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. Keep supporting the lesser of two evils, and our country will keep going down the tubes.
And, all right. I don't know what to say. I hope Jim goes and listens to that again. And I hope those people on Twitter who are like, you were really mean to that caller the other day.
You got him.
Maybe I am, and maybe I'm not the person sending you all these curse-laden emails.
You got him pretty good. That was he was caught up in his own web of lies.
I don't even know how to react to that, but that was pretty good. Morella, I think Jim was coming out of the pool of your libertarian friend, Sam. He gave himself away when he made his lesser of two evils comments. Apparently, he resents you for voting for Obama as a lesser evil. This is how, according to him, you cause ruin to the world. You invite this type of trouble when you invite your conservative or libertarian listeners to call in. They join and listen in and become enraged at what they hear. Yeah, well, I encourage Jim to call back in and anybody else to call back in. But here's what I would ask. And of course, I have no way of knowing. And we only screen to just get your name and location, so I don't have to go like, hey, 570, where are you calling from? Because I don't know all the area codes. That's all we ask for. You'd rather not discuss what you want to talk about?
What up,
Whatever.
Lila?
You have multiple callers on the phone. I want to talk to somebody who's talking
Now
about
you're
the
on
topic,
board
but
'cause you're
I'm
hanging
willing
out
to
with
talk to
us.
anybody. But here's what I would ask. Try to have an intelligent comment. Just try. If you don't get there, you don't get there. But try. Make the slightest bit of effort. You're aware that you're picking up the phone. You're aware that you're dialing 646-257-3920. Just have an idea of what you're going to say and say it out loud before you call so you can see if it doesn't sound ridiculous even to you.
This doesn't count for people calling to ask questions because there's no such thing as a stupid question.
That's right, of course. There's no such thing as a
Yeah, you getting a car tomorrow? What kind of car you getting, baller?
And Sam's even cool with you calling up and giving calling him
car,
every name in the
baller?
book too, as long as you follow it up with an intelligent comment.
Of course. Left Coast Marcus. Hey, Jim, Sam doesn't insult his callers, but I will. You are a moron. Look, I will occasionally insult my callers. Usually it takes quite a bit. I mean, if you can find another show that has allowed for as wide a disparity of opinion as people will call in with. And I think for the most part, I'm pretty respectful of it. I may disagree.
Most of these shows that take callers, you know, if someone called in like that, the producer would cut it off or they would just hang up on the person.
Yeah.
You at least have the decency to let them spill what they want to spill.
Decency. I mean, it's the what Jim is obviously got is some type of misplaced anger. I mean, the notion that somehow I am to blame for the ills of Jim, call back in. Tell us what the ills are that I am responsible for.
Jeep Renegade? Nice, man.
Country, incidentally, must have been doing great.
I don't know much
before
about cars, but
2004,
sounds pretty good. Congrats.
when I didn't have a radio show. And all I was doing was directing Gary Busey.
I think the country's better since, actually.
Actually, there's a very good argument that that show with Gary Busey did more harm to the country than anything I've ever done by talking about politics.
Okay, hold on. I need to hear that Jim part again because I think I want to use it in my audio clips.
Hey, are you tired of the media spinning the truth and pushing false narratives upon you? Well, take a look at this. Over the last 2 years, while the mainstream...
Okay.
You
Call me in, and then you also say that I'm a fool. And then you tell me that the problem... Let's just replay for a second. Focus on me.
I'm right.
Let's just focus on me. Let's just focus on me. What problem am I causing? Not the other ones.
Hold
just
on, I
me.
need to rehear this a little bit.
You're pushing the idea that you're always right. Everyone has to agree with you, and anyone who disagrees with you in the slightest way is evil or stupid.
Now, wait a second, Jim. Now, Jim, hold on for a second. Let's...
All right, so I'm going to save that segment. 2 minutes. Hypocrite Jim. I'm going to save that. I'm working on my facial reactions now. We did the lip syncing, so or my like my facial movements. So it's just I did my mouth all day yesterday. So now I'm gonna like do my eyes and my reaction and things like that. You gotta drive 4 hours to Pensacola. Where the fuck is that? You gotta wake up at 4 a.m. Jesus Christ, bro. Is this like for work? Like, what is this for? Oh my god. That is rough.
Let's just replay for.
Okay, we did that, so we have that. This is teaser. Libertarians, I will bring data next time. Okay, so this is another clueless libertarian.
Hey, this is Greg.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me?
I can. What's up?
Good. Okay. So I think it was about last year that I actually joined the show and became a supporter of majority of time. Yeah, baby.
All right.
I just wanted to celebrate by the original. I think originally I joined the show.
Pensacola to get the car to Florida. Oh shit! You gotta drive 5 hours to get your new car, and then you have to drive another 5 hours with your new car back home. Jesus, bro, this car must mean a lot to you. that is quite the trip, man.
I was attracted to it because of your Libertarian challenge that I saw on YouTube. And so to celebrate the anniversary, I figured I'm, kind of a classical liberal. It's pretty close. Maybe I can put on Libertarian hat and
classical
Go for
liberal,
it.
this guy. Dave Rubin types.
Okay, so I'm going to try to make a point that we could both agree on and consider that a win. So you, Sam, are basically a civil libertarian, right?
Yeah, I
Is that fair
think
to
so.
say? Okay, so you're basically just opposed to economic, economic liberty, or how would you define what is it that you are opposed to exactly? Do you recognize any limits on government intervention economically in businesses, or no?
Well, I mean, I don't think that government should own the means of production, at least across the board. I mean, I frankly, I don't know if that's what you're defining as intervention. But libertarian economic thought, I think, is is ridiculous. That's basically it.
I mean, basically, you also recognize limits. It's just a question of, these guys recognizing more limits than you
Right,
might,
right,
or maybe
right.
you haven't given
I look at outcomes. I'm not, to the extent that I think there should be limits on government, it's a function of what the implications are in terms of real world results. I don't subscribe to some ideology that tells me that government should be involved in everything or government should be involved in nothing. I look at what outcomes we want as a society.
Well, look, so would you agree that, listen, a lot of people do have ideologies. I mean, Milton Friedman has an ideology. Noam Chomsky has an anarchist ideology. By the way, libertarian does not have to mean anarcho-communist.
Yes, no, I understand.
Noam Chomsky is very much a libertarian.
Well, in some respects, but yeah, okay. So what's
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's like a gift, so that's not too bad.
So, I guess my
That's cool,
point
man.
is that since people
It eases
do
the blow, I
in fact
guess.
have ideologies coming into political discourse, we should hear them out. And if these ideologies happen to align well with data, for example, if it happens that more economic liberty, I'm not saying it does, or maybe a good case can be made, that if more economic liberty does in fact lead to greater prosperity and less poverty, then that is something that might be good, even if...
yes. And if, if keeping one shoe untied as I walk around also helps diminish child hunger, I would also be in favor of that too.
Okay, so we pretty much agree. So I guess I'm going to end this with focusing in on what the classical liberals, how they are different than progressives, and that's basically it's a loaded topic, but essentially progressives are more accepting of group laws that target groups like minorities, blacks, Latinos, Asians.
High as fuck, bro.
A commenter on YouTube.
I wish I was smoking right
Comment
now.
on one of your videos to say that, look, the Civil Rights Act was a landmark piece of legislation. It limited government discrimination and ended government segregation as well. But 50 years later, we have to look at these issues on an individual level, not just a group level, with affirmative action, for example, and things like that. And the commenter went and said, I don't know any Asians or Latinos or blacks who would agree with your position. You're just a libertarian. And I think you're just a racist. I'm like, this is the problem. Who is the racist? Is it the person who's looking at the individual, or is it the person who's looking at the individual as a member of a group and saying this group still needs the government to fight their battles for them because they're a member of this group? I'm not sure these individuals themselves would ever want that. So I think that's actually really racist. So my question is, do you recognize the difference between laws that apply to individuals on their own merits? And do you see any problems with laws that kind of collectivize these individuals and maybe penalize, let's say, Asian Americans applying to colleges because they do very well relative to other Asian Americans?
I mean, I'm not sure what. All I can tell you is that I think there's statistics that would show you that we are still have.
Sorry, I think I said it before live, but I'll say it again. So I pretty much did all the mouth movements, right? So now I'm gonna do like the movement of the eyeballs, like blinking, and actually I might say blinking for last, but I'll do like his move. I guess I might as well do blinking if I'm doing it. So he's just like he's literally just talking, right? Eyes are just stagnant there, and so he's gonna like react to it, so that kind of stuff. And then after that, we'll get into like movements. So like overall, move around the head, move around his hands, things like that. So, and then we'll go on to finish his reaction. So, and then we'll be pretty much done. So, almost there. Sorry, I'm gonna let this guy continue.
Problems with protected groups in this country. Okay, if you are a black teenager or a young black male and you smoke pot, you are far more likely to go to jail and be arrested for that than if you are white. That seems to me to be undeniable.
Yes.
And that may be just a sort of just a more glaring and obvious and less nuanced example. But I think that dynamic exists throughout society. And yes, I think that there should be protected classes of people. And my hope would be that in some time in the future,
if you take a break from weed,
we won't need to have that.
That's a good
point.
point.
I don't see evidence today that those type of protections are obsolete. That's my
right,
answer.
but Tim, so here's the bottom line, just really quickly. Don't you see the other side of that? That, the welfare state, which for all the good that it did, also created, I don't want to say ghettos, but, people that live off of welfare have a lot of children without a father sticking around. And what happens is that these children do grow up with opportunities that do actually cause them to get involved at a higher rate in crime and stuff like that. Not because.
Why do you think the welfare state created that?
Well, because the welfare enables single parenthood. It's much easier to be a single parent.
Do you think people make that determination? In other words, you think that if someone is not living with somebody else, they should be forced to be living with that other person
No, it's not that they are forced by anyone. It's that it's the nature. It's the nature of the universe. If we collectively subsidize single parenthood, right? If we say it's okay, people are going to have more kids, and they're going to be sitting and trying to get more, and not having.
I would need
work.
to see data that would suggest that people make those determinations based upon what they perceive they're going to get for welfare.
Are you saying there are no people just having?
I'm not saying that there are no people. I'm saying I would need to see some type of significant data that outweighs the benefit of providing welfare to people who don't have the means in which to feed their children.
It's just that it creates a moral hazard, just like any other insurance.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Too much of it will create much more.
I mean, it's a nice theory. That's a nice theory.
It's not a theory.
Should,
I mean, you can look
no,
at
it
the
is a
data.
theory.
It's not a theory.
You sent me a link that shows me that data. That other than Charles Murray saying that there's because this argument that somehow you're creating a culture of dependency, I think is bunk. I just don't buy it.
Well, there's data on both sides. So next time I'll try to come with an actual study or two.
That would be
it
good.
does.
right.
Welfare has both sides
Yeah,
to it.
look,
Next time I'll
there's-
prove my
and
point.
I appreciate the phone call. Look, there's always going to be, at a certain level, where there is a disincentive to work at a certain point. In other words, if I make $225 a week, okay, I'm actually going to be
I don't know if I
worse
could-
off than I would be.
I don't know if I could fast. That's a little too hardcore. Like fasting as in like just cutting out food for an entire day. I don't know if I could do that. I think that's a little too much for my taste. I need to eat like every few hours.
Because welfare could provide me $200 a week, and I wouldn't have to spend $50 a week on gas to get to the job. That intersection does happen, okay? I'm just using arbitrary numbers. But that's inevitable. There's no way you can avoid that with public policy. The
Overall,
only way you can avoid that dilemma is if you say, screw it, we're not going to provide any help to anyone, and you're going to have far more people who are going to be suffering because of that one little nexus of disincentiveness
Overall,
that affects a small percentage of people. That is the cost of doing business. There's no
all right, Donna, take it easy,
endeavor
buddy. Good luck tomorrow.
that
Safe
human
trip.
beings can
Safe travels.
undertake where you do not have small dilemmas like that. That's just the reality.
Overall,
And the question is, the fact that we may be disincentivizing certain small segment of people, but providing help to a far larger group of people, that's the relevant issue.
here's another one. Understanding the libertarian fantasy world.
Touch on yesterday's interview because we got a couple of people, a lot of people enjoyed it. One person wrote in and was like, you realize you're talking to a crazy person. And
Yeah.
and my response is yes. And the idea that, like, why would you do this? Well, there's a simple reason why I would do it. I do.
Tons of fun.
Well, no, it's not just that it's tons of fun. It is tons of fun. And I think people who listen to the program for an extended period of time, particularly who listen to the fun half, know that I love to debate people on this stuff. But the reason why I do it fundamentally, and the reason why I've always done it on every radio program I've ever had, and I have welcomed conservative callers. I've gone beyond welcoming conservative callers. And that is because I am not, it is not because I think that I can convince the person I am talking to and somehow convert them. It is to display for the rest of us And even those people who don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying, but don't necessarily agree with what the other person is saying, the ridiculousness of this other position. And so I got no problem letting Walter Block talk on this program, giving him the vast majority of time, allowing him to take his long explanations of things. And even, and people
You don't
are
like
like,
the
well,
winter,
why didn't you
Lila?
question
I
him
love
on his
this season.
premise that there was
I
only
love it.
2 million Native Americans? Because it doesn't matter.
Overall,
If there was 100 million Native Americans when, or 2,000, his whole formula
Overall,
is a joke. I mean, with all due respect, it's a joke. It's a joke. The idea that we would resolve every potential question of whose ownership of property is a function
It's
of
the darkness.
a multiple set of courts.
well, daylight saving
that
times
will
ends soon,
behave in a
so
way
it's
that
going to
he
get darker
anticipates
earlier.
They're going to behave. And that ultimately
So it's
their
just
authority
beginning.
simply gets resolved by who has enough money to buy as much guns as they can and back up those courts. And people made the point yesterday, like, my God, that's the utopia that the libertarians are promising us? But then, or the idea that somehow property is established by what the distance between planted ears of corn was in France, depending, of course, on which side of the Mississippi you're on. And if you didn't hear the debate yesterday,
Overall,
I'm not. This is not hyperbole on my part. This is what he based it on. I'm not reaching out of the air to bring the most absurd example. No, this is what it's based on. And you don't need to know any more about the libertarian philosophy.
Yeah, I didn't see all the videos they posted. I saw what you were posting me on Twitter. I'll check them out. But yeah, seems like everywhere's fucking having a protest. That's crazy. And I feel you with like the seasonal change. Like, it gets dark out and it gets more depressing. But I don't know. I guess you just gotta enjoy what we have of the day. But that's really all we can do. It's like everyone is fucking collapsing at once. It's not just us.
As to how it ends up being either a justification for racism or an engine for it. Because if you determine what is the true, most basic, fundamental building block as to the validity of someone owning property, and it is based upon not what
The recovery's a bit
Native Americans did in this country, or
bit
the
nerfed,
people
but-
who were here, but no, rather what white Europeans
Aside that-
imported and determined was going to
the
justify property. I mean, it was a way to disenfranchise. It was either a way to disenfranchise and invalidate and delegitimize the existence of the indigenous people.
Yes, so be it. Work around it.
Or it was a
we can
way
do
to
it.
simply justify that had
We
happened.
can do it.
I mean, it is the example that I would give would be, simply to say, like, if someone who's a great baseball hitter said, I am now in charge of, what merit is for athletics, and it is clearly one's capacity to hit a ball about this size with a wooden or metal bat. And everything else is secondary. We need a fundamental building block to say, what is a great athlete? And so this would be the first thing. So if you can't do that, you're not a great athlete. Oh, coincidentally, it turns out I'm really good at it.
Ah,
That's
great
not-
athlete example. Very good. That's a reductio ad absurdum reductaris.
That's right.
Not as good as the age of consent example, but
But I mean, that is. And I wanted to go in different.
The
I
downbeats on Slack.
wanted to go in some different directions with
You can-
the professor.
I
I
know the
ran
punch-
out of time. I didn't realize
It charges faster.
that I had said an hour. I probably had. I don't.
Punch in the air and
Sometimes you
charges
cover yourself in
faster.
that way because you're not sure where this is going to go.
Sam,
And
my
I-
medication is going to be wearing off shortly, and I think I've done a very good job of remaining sort of awkwardly over-civil for this conversation. But if you keep me on
He
for another
was.
5 minutes, I may just say, shut up! Leave me alone.
I had
The
to say-
black people and the acorns, and
I
I'm
was-
tired of it. I just want my own private court system. Is that too much to freaking ask for?
I was cheering in my seat though when he did say shut up. He didn't say it to you, but when you brought up how it was feudalism, and he went, but the king could just tell them to shut up. And
Side
I was
B
like,
has-
yes, yes.
Has armor.
But I mean, that's the thing is that, and he's saying, well, I don't know.
And the
if
new
it's really
face
feudalism.
general
But
has
it
armor.
really is.
It's not really feudalism. It's more of a inefficient, a less efficient Mad Max world. Are you familiar with that film, Sam?
In Mad Max, nobody had their own, well, they had their own courts, but they didn't wear, well, they wore robes, but there was a shortage of gasoline, and so clearly
And the new
these
fa-
are different examples.
No, it's the best as he literally said. It's not feudalism.
And the new
it's Hobbesian,
facial
which
animations
is
are all great changes that
shorthand
make
for, like,
him-
everything you don't really want. Like that was
Him.
coined in the sense of we need these really strict and structured institutions so as to not live in that state. Not like, well, really, it's less of a feudalism and more of a man against man wild dystopia where
I mean-
children
Yeah,
are ripped
people have
apart
had
in the
enough,
street.
Generally,
so
I don't like
they
to
fucking
go
riot,
down those paths
is crazy,
with
but
libertarians because all you do is
We need to.
you keep
We need to
digging
fight.
and
We need to
digging,
fight
and
the
hole,
elected officials, not this way,
it
but
gets smaller.
at the ballot
But
box.
it almost is impossible to get to the bottom of the hole because
People have
at
had
the
enough.
Bottom of the hole, you
Enough of
get,
this shit.
well, we're going to determine the legitimacy of
Make
property
him-
based upon some mores that we established in France. I mean, that's the way. That's the way. Of course, is like that's what you get at the bottom. Like this is. It's like saying. It's almost like
Or
trying
you.
to argue what was at
Or
the
you.
very beginning existence. I mean, there are theories, right? The Big Bang, but okay, well. We don't have to explain what happened before the Big Bang because that took place in France. And so we just imported it. And
A better
Well, and if
character.
you're not white, then tough
Oh, no.
coconut shells, or in this case, tough acorn
better
shells.
character.
Excuse me.
Sam, I got your wallet.
right.
You want it back? I'll see you at your court.
I'll see you in 15 to 55 courts.
Yeah. Would you like to do my court or your court next week?
At the very least, we know there's Court A, his court, Court B, my court, Court C,
I'm pretty sure your court was
the
court
court
F.
that adjudicates between those two courts. I don't know if anybody else has courts. It depends.
We're the
on how many-
anti-bureaucracy people. We want 75 courts.
Kev the King, what's up, man? I guess not tonight. Tonight we won't talk Joker. Maybe, and tomorrow I'm off. Maybe Thursday. How's Thursday, Kev the King? I did want to originally talk about it, but I thought it was already past it and you guys would be over it. But I'll still do it if you guys want. I'll give my thoughts. So let's do it Thursday. Let's aim for Thursday. How's that? Because tomorrow I don't think I can stream. I think I'm meeting up with something, but on YouTube. We could do it. We could do it on Twitch. Is Twitch okay too? It's the same shit. A Millennial Gamer, you haven't even seen Joker yet? You want to see it. Curious, when do you plan on seeing it? I'm curious. We could hold back on it if you want to talk about it. Let me know. Let me know.
To resolve a stolen wallet. What I also, like I said to you too, it also just seems to me it's sort of like debating astronomy with a Scientologist. Like it's like, okay, like I guess yes, in this world where aliens
We'll do,
blew up
Kev,
a
we'll
bunch
do.
of asteroids before the Big Bang. I guess yes. If I accept that premise, everything
But
else
the
you're
thing is,
saying
no,
makes.
But I mean that's the point though, is that they do not admit there's a fundamental premise, which is, in this instance when it comes to property, it's that look, we didn't know where to start, so we just chose the one that would ensure that we ended up with the property.
This movie, if you want to see this movie, I don't want to spoil it for you. We could always do it next week. I personally prefer that you see it because it's really good. I wouldn't want to be the one that spoils it. So go see it, and I guess just let us know when you plan on seeing it so we can like plan around it, do like a spoiler talk. So we'll see. Wait, the peaceful protest images, they came out but they were about getting deleted? What do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean, Lila. Alright, this one is Sam Cedar versus Libertarian Professor Walter Block, round 2. This is a longer one.
I would call the police. I would call the private police agency and...
Let's start over.
We are back. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report on the phone. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Dr. Walter Block. He is a economist at the business school at Loyola University, a longtime libertarian as well. Professor, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, just to catch up new listeners to this program, we had a debate, I guess now it was back in May of last year. And, I want to just clear the air of one thing, and that was that I think at the time you felt that I didn't quite give you as much time or I wasn't quite fair with doling out the time, I guess, in the context of our debate / interview conversation. And I just wanted to say that one of our listeners, whose handle is Fred at Con College, who I think we actually may get as an intern, did a breakdown of our of a comparative analysis of talking times during our debate from that.
Joker is a completely different thing, dude. The Nolan verse is done. That's like those 3 movies. That's it. No more Nolan verse. Joker is like its own thing. I don't even know if it's in the main continuity of the DC movies, like with Aquaman and all that shit. So I think it's confirmed like its own thing. Is there a YouTube channel called Life's Biggest Question? I never heard of that. Actually, I might have. That sounds familiar, actually, now I think about it. But I don't think I'm a big viewer of it. But we'll watch it.
That day. And we've linked to it on the site. But I think you'll find that you did okay, and I hope to provide a similar breakdown this time.
I really have no problem. If I thought I was being treated vastly unfairly, I wouldn't be back on your program. So I guess my own comfort level is, more formal. You get 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes. You get 3 minutes, I get 3 minutes. But I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And in retrospect, I don't think I was really.
What'd you think about the movie, though, Kev the King? No spoilers, like overall thoughts. Like you loved it, you hated it, whatever.
Great. I'm glad that was your feeling. Now, I want to start off with a question that has actually been posed by a listener of this program who calls in quite a bit, and he is a bit of a self-identified libertarian. And he had a question for you, which I thought was a good way to start off, just so that, because one of the challenges I've had with taking phone calls from libertarians is that maybe every is an exaggeration.
You get 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes.
All libertarians who call into this program say that the other libertarians who have called into this program are not really libertarians. And so the question that he poses is, what's the difference between consequentialist and deontological libertarianism, and which one are you?
Right. The joke among libertarian circles is if you get 10 libertarians in a room on any given issue, you'll have 11 different opinions. Another one is organized libertarians, sort of like herding cats. It can't be done. I'm a professor. I'm never supposed to answer questions exactly or on point, so let me deviate a little bit from your question, although I will answer it. There are 4 kinds of libertarians in my view, and deontological versus utilitarian or consequentialist is only is sort of a different dimension of distinction between libertarians. The main differences, as I see it, between libertarians is there are 4. The first one is anarcho-capitalist, of which I'm one.
There are 4 libertarians.
And we say that the essence of libertarianism is the non-aggression.
That's true. They have rules.
Yourself, don't invade.
Now there are 4 different libertarians.
And since the government necessarily does it, we're all anarchists. The second group, and I guess the most famous people there would be Murray Rothbard. The second group would be minarchists, minimal government libertarians, and most famous people there would be Ayn Rand and Robert Nozick, and they also adhere to the non-aggression principle, as do all libertarians, but I don't think they're as logically consistent. And what they say is that we should have minimal government, and the government should just have armies to keep foreign bad guys off of us, police to keep local bad guys off of us, and courts to determine who the good guys and the bad guys are. The third group, and I'm in descending order in terms of purity in my view, the third one would be constitutionalist libertarians like Ron Paul, who believe in the U.S. Constitution, and I would even include Rand Paul in this too, and pretty much anything the Constitution says is what libertarianism is all about. And the fourth group I would call classical liberals, Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek. Those people certainly agree with minimal government, night watchman libertarianism, but they would add more. Welfare programs, vouchers, other things like that. So that would be the 4 breakdowns. So if you heard from any one of those 4, the other 3 would say, well, he's not really a libertarian. Whereas in my view, they're all libertarians. Libertarianism is a many splendored thing. There are many mansions, and I'm a big tent kind of a guy. Now, to answer your question finally, the difference between consequentialist and deontological libertarianism is a consequentialist is sort of like utilitarian. What the consequentialist or the utilitarian libertarians say is, if you follow the non-aggression principle, that's the route to human happiness. We'll all be happier if people keep their midst to themselves. The government is either non-existent or very limited.
I don't think it would go well, Millennium Gamer.
Whereas the deontological libertarians are much more logical. It's not that the other people are illogical, but it's based on logic. Namely, we deduce from the non-aggression principle plus homesteading for private property rights, and wherever that leads us, even, justice though the heavens fall, we don't care about utility. We only care about rights. So the deontological libertarian would talk about rights, and the utilitarian or consequentialist libertarian would talk about human happiness, also as emanating from the non-aggression principle.
And you are a consequentialist, is that it?
No, I'm a deontological libertarian, and I'm also an anarcho-capitalist. So there are 2 different dimensions, so to speak, and those are my 2 positions.
So let me ask you about this, I mean, just in terms of the non-aggression principle. How in the world that you imagine, how does one maintain property rights?
Well, in my view, as a...
You remember, like, last time he debated this guy? I thought it'd be, like, a calm, civil conversation that slowly escalated. I'm waiting for that moment. Because right now it seems like it's going to be a civil conversation, but we both know well. We all know well.
a anarcho-capitalist, there would be private defense agencies that had police forces or armies, and if you stole my wallet, for example, let's say, and my wallet is legitimately mine, I would call the police. I would call the private police agency, and they would come get you and make you disgorge the wallet and punish you according to libertarian punishment theory. If I were a minarchist, I would just call the government and I'd say, "Hey, Sam stole my wallet. Go get him." And if Sam
These
said,
aren't
"No,
real
I didn't
callers.
really steal it," then we would have to adjudicate it through the court.
Now, so well, okay, that raises a couple of questions for me. I mean, the first being that, who gets to determine if you're not a minarchist or
Minarchist.
a minarchist? If you're not a minarchist, who gets to determine whether or not I really stole your wallet?
Well, we would have a series of competing courts, and let's suppose you deny that you stole the wallet. You claim that I stole it from you yesterday, and you're just repossessing it, or something like that. Well, you would go to your court, call it Court A, and you would invite me to go to Court A, and I'd say, "What? Court A? That's your brother or your mother. I'm not going to Court A." And I would go to Court F. F is in Frank. And I would invite you to come to my court, and you say, "What? Court F?
It's all
That's your mother, your brother, your friend, whatever. I'm not going." And now and then we would each go to our own courts. And now it's possible that both, and when you go to a court, you sign an agreement that you'll obey or abide by what the court says. Now it's possible that both courts will agree with you, in which case it's sort of case closed. Both courts and police will, come after me because they both agreed with you, or vice versa. It's possible that both courts will agree with me, in which case, you'd better give me that wallet back because not only my court, but your court - police will come after you. Okay, so the more interesting case is suppose the courts disagree. Now, one possibility, which we won't consider, is that my court agrees with you and your court agrees with me. Let's forget about that for the moment. And let's assume that your court agrees with you and my court agrees with me. Now, Ayn Rand, who is a minarchist, says at this point, blank out. You anarchist libertarians. By the way, the debates among libertarians are pretty ferocious. She says, blank out. Then what happens? The courts fight. And the answer to that, coming from my quarter of libertarianism, is no. There are two types of courts. One type of court, we call them legitimate courts, are courts that will anticipate. Court A and Court F will recognize each other as courts and will say, look, if ever we come up with a dispute and we come up on the opposite side of this dispute, let's go to Court C, as in Charlie, and or take a random number. We'll have 15 courts that we all agree are legitimate courts, and we'll pick one of them, and their decision will be final, and that'll settle it. On the other hand, there might be bandit courts. Bandit courts are either too stupid to realize that they might be on opposite sides of an issue, or they say, I don't care, my way or the highway. And the point is that the bandit courts would have to fight everyone. They would have to fight other bandit courts and legitimate courts, whereas the legitimate courts would only have to fight bandit courts, and the point is that fighting is expensive. They'd have to pay more for their soldiers or their policemen, and presumably they would, go the way of the dodo bird. We wouldn't have too many of them, or at least it wouldn't be as bad as present government. So that's how it would be settled if you and I had a dispute as to whose wallet it was.
So wait,
is paradigm case the property rights.
All right, so let me see if I understand this. In the scenario where my court is not one of those courts that agrees to subsume its authority to Court C, right? Not your court, but a court that we mutually agree upon that would adjudicate our discrepancy.
Yes.
Assuming that my court is not one of those, really its legitimacy is just simply a function of how big of an army I have.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a function of how big the army is. I would
or
say
how much money I have, because you're saying that I would have to fight everybody, and it would go the way of the dodo board if I don't have a dodo bird, if I don't have enough money to support that army that could fight everybody.
Well, I don't think it's either a matter of guns or money. I think the pen is mightier than the sword because the pen determines in which way the sword is pointed. And I think legitimacy is very important. And, the whole society would look upon your court, not you, but your court as sort of as a bandit court and wouldn't have much legitimacy. I mean, even the mafia had some sort of legitimacy.
Okay, but let's say it doesn't. Let's say the society says, we're not going to legitimize your court. And I say, okay, I don't care. I didn't steal your wallet. According to my court, which I think is actually the only legitimate court. Then what happens?
Then it's war. Then we have a little bit of a fight.
So, I mean, I guess for me, what you're outlining is sort of like feudalism to me, right? I mean, and even before we get to that point, what's interesting to me is this notion of like, just the idea that you could, we call it a wallet, but let's say that, a house. Or let's say not even a house, a piece of land, something that existed before you claimed ownership to it. When you claim ownership to something, aren't you basically just saying, like, I have a legitimate right to exercise violence in the protection of this area that I have claimed for myself? And you've just sort of, that seems to me to be contrary to your non-aggression principle.
Well, I would offer you a friendly amendment. It's not so much feudalism. What you should have said is more Hobbesian, Hobbes, where it's a war of all against all. I imagine you'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Feudalism wasn't warlike because the king would sort of tell the dukes to, shut up or something.
I imagine that's what would happen, though, in this scenario, right? Because that's what you were saying is that we would, if we didn't agree to Court C, well, Court C, it sounds like to me, is the king. You and I are the dukes. And there may be other courts that we function in that way, but whatever. Let's continue.
Do you have any?
Well, I was just offering a friendly.
Do I have any pets? No, I don't have any pets. I'm actually allergic to dog hair. So I don't have dogs. I don't have cats. Because I would suffer immensely if I did. I did have a hamster back in the day. I had fish. I've had a turtle, multiple turtles. And they all have passed now. I had a hermit crab. I'd like to get a Yorkie one day. Like, Yorkies are actually one of the only dogs that I can get because they don't shed, and they're small dogs. I wouldn't want to get a beast. I'll probably get a Yorkie one day when I get my own place. But for now, I do not have pets. You guys have pets? Do you guys have any pets?
The amendment that, it's really the Hobbesian world that you're alluding to.
And birds are too annoying.
Feudal, but if you want to stick to feudal, that's okay. And also, I agree with you. It doesn't really matter whether it's a wallet or a house or land or anything. I was just using as a wallet as a paradigm case of property that people could dispute over. But I disagree with you. And by the way, this debate that we're now having is a ferocious debate within libertarianism between the minarchists and the anarchists. And you are taking the minarchist point of view, and I will now take the anarchist point of view and say, look, the logical implication of your minarchist libertarian view, I'm glad I've converted you to minarchist libertarianism. I'm just kidding. Right now, China and Colombia are in a state of anarchy with each other. Right now, Brazil and Burundi are in a state of anarchy with each other. Right now, the U.S. and, Australia are in a state of anarchy because there's no world government. And logically, your position, if you say, well, if we have decentralized the police systems, you're going to have a Hobbesian or a feudal world. Well, the logical implication of that is we have to have a world government. Because if you're afraid that Court A and F will not abide by Court C, and each one will say my way or the highway, or I'm right and the hell with you, well then we really need a world government, because right now there's anarchy between about 250 countries, and yet of course there's a problem with world government. Namely, look, we're both Jewish. And we know that Jews are wandering Jews. Yeah. We wander from one place to another because one dictator doesn't like us much, and we go somewhere else.
Are those big dogs? That sound like big
arises,
dogs.
Or what's happening in France arises, and we go to Israel or the United States or somewhere else. But if there were one world government, and China and India, and if it was democratic, those two countries would have a big say, and there'd be no place for us Jews to go to. So. And I don't mean to make it just a Jewish thing, but anyone who
world
is on the outs from the powers that be likes the fact that we
is
have
that
a
Illuminati
bit of
emote a default, or did you unlock it from someone?
Sam, are logically implied to favor world government, and I think that that's a problem.
Well, I mean, I don't know that you've really addressed what I said. I mean, there are. I mean, I think the world is better off for having the UN. I think that there is. I wouldn't mind actually. I don't have a problem with the series of sort of, I guess, of treaties and regimes that we have in the context of those regimes. They're not as enforceable, and sometimes they do lead to war, and I do think that's problematic. But things like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, I agree. There's only so much that, in the context of international relations, that we can, when we're talking about major countries, that we can really create a regime that functions, and I think we're doing our best. But that doesn't really, that doesn't address the idea of property as it speaks now. I mean, when you have the ability, and in fact, look, that's when it is the notion of property and national boundaries, I agree on some level, is completely arbitrary, right? And it just so happens that's where the Chinese have enforced it through weapons,
World
and
governments.
same with the United States, I guess, too. But that doesn't address my question. How does the non-aggression principle reconcile itself with the idea that you can claim ownership of something? Because it is only that ownership, that property right that you exercise, is simply basically your way of saying, I have the ability to be aggressive if you attempt to take what I have decided is mine.
Well, you're sort of, I think, veering dangerously close to the argument of might makes right, and accusing me of favoring that view, that might makes right. But I don't uphold that view. My view is that there's justice and there's right, and sometimes justice and righteousness lose out in the war. I mean, sometimes the bad guys win, unhappily. So I don't think that might makes right. I think
where do
that
property rights come from is really what I'm asking, I think.
Well,
and how does that not involve aggression?
Well, you have to distinguish between violence and aggression, or violence and invasive aggression. I mean, libertarians are not pacifists. We don't believe, well, some might be pacifists, but you need not be a pacifist to be a libertarian. You can believe in self-defense or other defense. If I come after you with a knife, you have a right to shoot me because I'm violating your property rights in your person.
Well, wait a second.
You.
That's what's interesting to me, is that your personal integrity is a property right. That seems to me to be fairly arbitrary. I mean, if I take a knife, let's say, and walk onto your property and stab your ground, I don't think that that is the same as coming at you as a human being. But it seems like you're saying that those are the same things.
Well, I wouldn't say they're the same. I would say that they're both property rights. One is a more important property right of mine, my body. And if you put a knife into my body, you're really violating a very, very important piece of my property right. On the other hand, if you just step on my lawn and maybe throw a knife into my lawn, well, yeah, I think you've also violated my property rights, but a much less important property right of mine.
Well, let me ask you this: we all I will, for the sake of argument, call them both property rights. But one is a property right that every single human being has, which is their own person by definition. And the property right to what you consider your property, that to me seems to be not inherent in every person, because every person doesn't own a piece of land. So I'm curious. It's quite obvious how the first one is arrived at, because everybody is a human being. They are themselves. It's quite clear as to who they are. But how is it that you establish that you own this land without it being a function of violence?
Okay. Well, let me answer it in this way, and I think that's a very important question. First, I don't know if it's a concession or not on your part. I think maybe it's not, but it's a very important point that you made that we each own ourselves, because there are people who deny this. For example, the Nazis denied that Jews and gays and Romani and blacks and non-Aryans really own themselves. And the issue of slavery, there were some people who said that other people really don't own themselves, but we own them. And in the case of rape. The rapist, in effect, is saying to the rape victim, you don't really own, or at least all the property rights in your person. I own some of them, namely the right to abuse you in this sexual way. So that's a very important point. And from this, libertarians would deduce that slavery is an abomination, that kidnapping is an abomination, that rape is an abomination. But the point is that I have a right to self-defense. So again, I'm making you the bad guy. I hope you don't mind. First, I accused you of stealing my wallet. Now I'll accuse you of coming at me with a knife, as I did before. Now, if you come at me with a knife with the intent to stab me, you're in effect saying that I don't have a right to exist, namely that you own me, in effect, that you can determine what happens to me. And I can use violence. So libertarians are not against violence. I can use violence to ward off your attack. And so therefore, property rights imply violence, not only property rights in land and in wallets and in houses, but even in persons. Namely, suppose that there's this African guy and there's this white person who wants to enslave him and bring him to the United States. They're both using violence, only I would say one is using justified violence, namely defensive violence, and the other is using aggressive violence. And libertarians are only against aggressive violence. So that would be one point. The other point is, well, how do you get to own
Sam's itching to talk.
property or non-human property? And here, libertarians pretty much rely on John Locke, another famous philosopher, along with Hobbes. And what Locke said is, if you mix your labor with the land, you sort of imprint your personality on the land. So you go out, and you sort of homestead and you put in a crop and you take care of the land. You knock down a few trees, you get rid of a few rocks, and you put in a cornfield or something. Well, then you own that land. That would be the libertarian defense of that.
Well, okay. There's a couple things that stick out. One is I think that from my perspective, calling one's personhood property is really sort of a semantics game that I think falls apart when you talk about like my right to exist. Because when I trespass on your property, from your perspective, I'm not questioning the right of that piece of land to exist. I'm just questioning your dominance over that land, which is clearly not a part of you. But how is it, if it's simply just a question of when you mix your labor with that property, it becomes yours, does that mean that if someone, I guess, inherits it, or if someone just doesn't do anything with the property, then there's no property right vested in it?
Well, no. I would say that Robert Nozick is sort of my guru or my mentor on this one. He talks about legitimate title transfers to property. And he says that any voluntary transfer is legitimate. For example, I put in this corn crop. And you domesticate a cow, and you capture the cow and you domesticate the cow, and now you get some milk out of the cow. And now what happens, I trade you some corn for some milk, and now I own the milk even though I didn't produce it, and you own the corn even though you didn't produce that. And yet I would say, along with Nozick and every other libertarian, that I now have a legitimate title to the milk because I can trace it back to an agreement with you to trade, have this barter, and also to original homesteading. Namely, you're the legitimate owner of the milk because you domesticated the cow, and I'm the legitimate owner of the corn because I, homesteaded the cornfield. So that would be one legitimate title transfer trade. Another one would be gifts. I give some corn to you as a birthday present. Or I give my son the cornfield as an inheritance. That's to hit you with his death, or a gift as you're passing away.
Oh my
or
God.
Gambling. I bet you on the Super Bowl, and I lose, and you get some corn. And I bet you some corn against some milk, and that would be another legitimate title transfer. But the point is, suppose I now, homestead the cornfield, and then I go away for a year or so. Do I have to keep homesteading it? And that's a debate among libertarians. And in my view, is once you own it, period. And there's a very technical issue. Well, suppose you go away for 50 years, then, do you give up ownership? And I would say that's a very esoteric point among libertarians. But you can have, what do you call it, absentee landlords or absentee landowners. In other words, I now I homestead the cornfield, and now what I do is I rent it out to you. You're my farmer person. I make an arrangement with you. I'll let you you put the corn in. It's my field, but you put the corn in, and you give me half the crop.
If you flip off a libertarian on his property with the finger, he has a right to shoot that finger off and make you eat it. That's his right.
Something like that. You're a sharecropper. That would be a legitimate.
Professor,
contract.
according to what you're saying, that the vast swaths of this country are illegitimately considered property.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the Native Americans.
Yes. Yes, Native. Now you've elaborated enough. You've said Native
And
Americans.
I would also argue that, when we're talking, I guess, accordingly, if we're using illegitimate labor, i.e. slaves, to homestead property, that also seems to be questionable.
Oh, I wouldn't say questionable. I would say very
in terms of property.
Yes, very unjustified. Now, I've had a debate with I forget the guy's name. A Jewish guy, a Second Thoughts guy. Do you know who that is?
No.
It's right at the tip of my tongue. I can't. Horowitz. Horowitz.
Ink like X. What up?
I forget his first name. It has to do with reparations to black people for
How you
slavery.
doing?
Now, in my view, and I think most libertarians would agree with me, and I think you would probably agree with me on property rights, what should have happened in 1865 is that they should have declared slavery ex post facto illegal, just as we did in Nuremberg trials. We should have made those slave owners slaves of the slaves. But, they've escaped our justice because we can't go back to 1865. But what should have happened with those big plantations? Well, if there were 500 slaves on plantation X in South Carolina somewhere, what should have happened is that the 5,000 acres should have been divided up into 500 plots, and each slave should have got, 10 acres or whatever the numbers come out. Instead, that plantation went to the slave owner's son. And now in South Carolina, there's some, let's say it hasn't been sold, there's some great-great-grandson of the slave owner, a white guy, who owns that plantation. And I would say that the great-grandchildren, some guy, a black guy, say, living in Harlem, who was the grandson of the slave, should, in justice, go to the court and say, hey, the white grandson isn't a criminal. He's just the recipient of stolen property. But that property should go to me. And
No.
I think you would agree with me on that.
overall-
would you not?
I think there is.
The recovery's a bit
I think
nerfed.
there's certainly an argument for reparations along
Maybe
those
all
lines.
the-
I mean, I think, but my point is that, and when we talk about Native Americans as well, we're looking at an entire property regime in this country that, according to you, is illegitimate.
Yes, well, it's the same principle, only there's some slight difference. Because when the white man came to...
What is Aleppo? What up, man? I love that name. Shoe on Head. I'm not familiar with Shoe on Head. I don't know who that is. Shoe on Head. Shoe on Head. I don't like her, but she's hot. Let's see how hot she is. Very okay person, social democrat. I will never read a book. She'll never Bernie 2020 Tulsi. What don't you like about her? centrist. I mean, she's attractive. That I'll give her that.
Happy
But
International Women's Day.
100 ways to respect women. Ugh. Is this as cringy as I think it is? I might be a pedo, but at least I'm not rude. What? Chick has a lot of subscribers. Let's see. She's 28. She lives in New York. Extremely online. Comedic social commentary on things such as feminism, LGBT issues, and women's media. Okay, I can see why you might not like her. I have an alternative brainlet where I'm currently covering an election. Do movie reviews on the channel Armored Media. Stick around if you like scary and bad memes. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. I don't know anything. I never heard of this bitch before. I have never heard of this bitch. But Armored Skeptic. I don't know who he is either. Who is Armored Skeptic? Armored Skeptic. Armored Skeptic. How bad is the media? Okay, well. Never heard of this dude either. She's one of those anti-SJW types. She's friends with Lauren Southern. I don't know who that is either. She's on the anti-justice. Oh, come on, really? Is she that kind of girl that would be like, oh my god, you call me a bitch? Like, I would call my boy like this fucker. Is that offensive to dudes? Like, I feel like a dude wouldn't be offended to that. Like, this motherfucker. I'm literally calling him like a person who fucks his mom. A person who fucks mothers. Lauren pushes the white genocide conspiracy theories. Jesus Christ. This is why I haven't heard of these people. This is why I haven't heard of these people. These people sound terrible.
North America, the estimates are that there were about 2 million native.
But if we have a centrist liberal pushing for Bernie's message, that's great. Cool. I'm all for that. I don't care who you are.
Or native persons. And right now, there are, I think, 350 million people in the United States, and it's still pretty empty. The point, I mean, if you take a plane...
Well, but I mean, we've already determined, right, that if you planted something on that soil, you own it. And so it's not even just actually living there. It sounds like anything that you've done to alter it creates your property. And it seems to me like everything that we have in terms of property rights in this country is illegitimate. I suppose it's possible that a small percentage of the property rights in this country are legitimate, I suppose. But it seems to me that opens up a whole nother sort of like argument that like...
No, Lila, that is not going to happen. Hillary Clinton is not going to jump in the race. There is no way in hell. I don't care how much Tulsi savages her. There is no way in hell Hillary Clinton jumps in this race. No way. This is Lauren Southern. Wait, what do you mean? You're Lauren Southern? But I don't know who you are. Hold on. Oh, oh my god, I'm so retarded. Okay. I'm so retarded. Your link got delayed. I don't know why. Like, links can't be... I have to, like, change the setting or something. I'm still, like, getting the hang of this Twitch shit. Clinton's gonna announce she's running tomorrow, isn't she? Isn't she? She's not running. There's no way she's running. It's too late. It's way too late. It'd be such a foolish move. Foolish. She released policy positions on her website? No. It's not happening. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. This one? Oh, Jesus Christ. Read about Hillary's life. Learn about Hillary's vision for America. Team laid out a company. Progressive vision for America's future. God. This is all from 2016. Right? Right? Wall Street reform. What a joke. What a fucking joke. Onward together. No. On the dedicated to the ugh. Join Onward together. No, it's not happening, Lila. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. What would Lauren Southern say? I'm tired of people bashing Clinton. Literally, he's gone. I mean, people are going to bash Clinton because she's poking her head outside of the cupboard that she's hiding from and talking shit to a vet. But there's no way. I wouldn't say she's the devil. I'd just say she's a shitty politician. That's what I would say. She has nothing. Dude, she lost to Trump. Like, you should not be showing your face or talking in public. It's insane.
We could empower our
She's
government today.
I wouldn't go that far.
To
but
involve in all sorts of
we all have our opinion.
takings of that property in one form or another, because none of those property rights are actually legitimate in any fashion.
Well, I think you've got a very good attempt at a reductio ad absurdum of my principle, and I applaud you for it. And there are libertarians who take that exact view, but I beg to differ.
Well, show me how what breaks down in my reductio ad absurdum.
Reductio ad absurdum.
Sorry.
No problem. I mispronounce things too. It's
sort of my trademark.
Right. Okay. Well, all geniuses do this. No problem. I think that in logic, you're impeccable. You're absolutely right, and I fully agree with you. The only problem, the only caveat I have with your reductio ad absurdum is just the numbers. And I was starting in to respond to that. And the point I'm making now is right now there are 350, roughly, million Americans. And if you take a plane from, I don't know, St. Louis to San Francisco and you go west of the Mississippi and you look down at night, the place is bloody empty. The place is empty. And even east of the Mississippi, it's
That's
not
accurate.
all that full.
That's accurate. I would say that at least minimum for
million people. But assuming
Hill
that
Clinton.
when the white man came, there were only 2 million Indians in all of the U.S. present territory, and maybe Canada too. They couldn't occupy anything like 98% of the land. They couldn't have homesteaded all that. So what I would say is, yes, they should have, the typical Indian tribe would have a southern area, say in Arizona, and it'd be, I don't know, 10 square miles.
Well,
And
Professor,
then,
forgive me. I mean, there's really no way for us to do this. But I mean, we've already argued at this point. If you chop down a tree, and we know that natives cross this entire land, undoubtedly chopping down trees. Now, we could argue it's 40%. They were able to cover 40% of the country, or it could be 80% or 75%. I mean, whatever that figure is, and you increase it over time. It seems to me that let's assume that it's just a figure. You want to call it 30%? Let's call it 30%.
No, I want to call it 0.5%.
Really? So you don't think that they chopped a tree? I mean, you know, like when you go and homestead, you don't necessarily put a piece of corn on every single piece of that property, right? I mean, when you you don't necessarily even put is it just the fence, everything that's included within that fence, or is it, do you need to put something on every square inch of that property according to the way that you legitimately acquire property? In other words,
I'm going to say something now, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way, but I really want to give you a compliment, and I want to say that you're a very brilliant young man. I think you're younger than me, so I'll say young man. This is exactly the debate that libertarians involve themselves in, namely, how intensive does the farming have to be in order to count as homesteading? For example, if you put a fence around the whole United States, do you own all that's in there? No. On the other hand, do you have to put a corn plant every square inch? No. How about every square foot? Well, maybe. And eastern Mississippi, a little bit more intensive than western Mississippi, because eastern Mississippi it was.
But aside that,
I don't know, more.
Is this really, Professor? Be honest with me. Is this really the big debate amongst libertarians? Because it seems to me, I mean, with all due respect, because like, I mean, the reason why I feel like I'm indulging in this line of question is because if we can get to a number that we can relatively agree upon, and you can tell me how you get to that 0.5%, but if we can get to a number that is 30%, 40%, 20%, seems to me then any argument that we have government taxation or regulation that inhibits things to 20 or 30%, if that's already our starting point with libertarianism, I'm feeling really good about that. Because at the end of the day, I don't really care about the philosophical underpinnings of this stuff. I'm looking for policies in the real world that I think are good. So if you're going to say it's 0.5%, 2 million based upon 300 million today, I'm just curious, what is it? Where do you fall on that? Is it the fence? Is it
a guy from your high school says Hillary should run again? Can you ask him why? Considering she already lost to Trump? I just ask him that question. Just why? Because she already lost. Why would we run her again? Why? What has been different? What has she done since 2016 to now? Aside do like book signings and tours are like, oh, I was it was Russia's fault, not my fault. What has she done? She's done nothing. She's barely taken blame for her loss and blamed other people. She's not gonna run again. Stop it. You guys are putting bad energy into the air right now, into the universe right now. Bad juju. And it's making you paranoid. So stop it. Hillary Clinton is not running again. No way, no how.
Every yard you need to have a corn? Do you need to chop a tree every 6 feet or 12 feet? Or how does that work?
Well, I'm trying to explain that to you. But before I do, let me just say that we're agreeing on the principle. I agree with you that if the native Indians homesteaded 40% of the land, or 60 or 80% or whatever it is, then they should have 40 or 60 or 80% of the land. So we have no dispute.
I'm just stipulating.
On principle.
Make no mistake. I'm just stipulating.
And the new facial animations are
your philosophy.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, then provisionally. I should put the word provisionally. Look, we agree on 100% of the slave lands, do we not? Those plantations that were really homesteaded by the slaves under the whip of the overseers?
I would say that we probably, that I actually think that the reparations should be broader than those direct descendants, frankly. But
okay. Well, we have that. You see, the argument... this guy Horowitz argued with a black scholar at Harvard, I think, who said, I think what you're now saying is that, all whites owe all blacks something for slavery. And here I agree with Horowitz, who says, well, there were a lot of blacks who came after slavery was over. Why should they get anything? And there were a lot of whites, Jews, for example, who never had slaves. And also there were blacks who had slaves. So I wouldn't go any further than that, but I think you and I agree on 100% of the land, at least. We agree
Well,
on that.
I
You wanna
wouldn't.
go further.
I don't get there for the same reasons you do, but that's not important in the context of this.
no.
I'm just curious as to like how I was just pursuing a question as to how it is that you perceive property rights, not the exercise of property rights, and I'm talking about the property rights that aren't innate to one by being born. Okay, how you exercise those property rights without exercising aggression, because I walk into a house, if I don't recognize it's your house, or better yet, let's just keep it a piece of land. I walk onto this piece of land, I don't recognize your authority, wherever it comes from, to own that land, and you attack me. As far as I'm concerned, you're being aggressive. But you're saying the way that I have got the authority to own that land is because I've worked it, or because I've mixed my labor with it. And now I'm asking you, okay, what are the parameters of that? Because hey, you're about to exercise violence on me, aggression on me. But you're saying the reason why it's not aggressive is because you have a legitimate claim to that property, and I'm trying to figure out how did you get that legitimate claim? You tell me by working it, and I go, what do you mean?
Right. No, it's a fair question. And by the way, how I get the 0.5% is I put 2 million Indians in the numerator, and I put 350 million people in the denominator, and I get 2 over 350, which is, I don't know, 1/3% or something like that. Just a rough and ready estimate.
So it would have been better for the Native Americans to have this conversation 100 years ago.
Well, no, even 100 years ago, they never owned more than 2% of anything because there were so few of them, and they couldn't possibly homestead vast areas.
But wait a second, your numerator changes, though, right? I mean, 100 years
Oh,
ago.
yes. Oh, no. The numerator changes 100 years. In other words, there were 2 million Indians when we white people, I don't think your ancestors or mine were there then, but when we white people came, there were 2 million. We killed an awful lot of them, so the numerator decreases, but I'm willing to keep the numerator up to as many people as there were before they were slaughtered by the white people.
That's mighty white of you, as we would say.
So to speak. You should say so to speak. Look, the point is, as to the intensivity or the extensivity of the homesteading, it depends upon the culture. East of the Mississippi, you have to be more intensive. West of the Mississippi, less intensive. When we go to the moon and we start using the Lockean homesteading theory, we would even be less intensive because it's a desert. So you just chop down a tree every 20 feet, or well, there are no trees on the moon. But the point is that east of the Mississippi, you have to plant those corn plants as the way most people plant the corn plants. Namely, it's based on the culture, and I guess that's every foot or every yard or something like that.
Well, what if
So
the Native
Indians-
American culture was such that, we just walk across it and anything that we can see?
Too bad. Too bad on them. That's not libertarian. Anything you can see. Then Columbus, let's say there were no Indians where Columbus was, and he gets up on a big ladder and he sees 100 square miles. Well, if that's his culture, the libertarians would
Well, I'm
just
saying
reject
if they're the first ones to see it. Or
Too
we
bad.
use it as part of our, I cut down this tree here so that I can see the valley. Haven't I worked it? Haven't I mixed that that
Wait
view
a
shed
minute.
with my labor?
TYT has a video. Hillary Clinton considering 2020 run. Guys, you see what juju you have bestowed? Hold on, we need to watch this video.
Joe Biden has proven himself to be a disastrous pick for centrist Democrats. So as a result, they're in a scramble trying to find the proper replacement. Who can, really represent their values and win the primary and hopefully beat Donald Trump? Well, there's a New York Times article that I highly recommend everyone looks into. The title is Anxious Democratic Establishment Asks, is there anybody else?
I love the smell of panic by the establishment in the morning.
So let me give you a tasty taste of what this piece says, and then I'm going to give you the names that are floating around in establishment circles.
Oh my God.
So party leaders who are fatalistic about Democrats' chances in 2020 are musing about possible late entrants to the race. Sherrod Brown, Michelle Obama, with doubts rising about former Vice President Joe Biden's ability to finance a multi-state primary campaign. His donations are drying up a little bit. Persistent questions about Senator Elizabeth Warren's viability in the general election, and skepticism that Mayor Pete Buttigieg out of South Bend, Indiana, can broaden his appeal beyond white voters. Democratic leaders are engaging in a familiar rite, fretting about who is in the race and longing for a white knight to enter the contest at the last minute.
God,
so
this
some of
is
the names
such a
that are being
joke.
floated, and a lot of these are disastrous. There's Hillary Clinton. There's Michael Bloomberg, Michelle Obama, John Kerry. You also have some people floating the idea of Eric Holder running, Sherrod Brown, Deval Patrick.
Hold on, this is kind of a clickbaity title because she's just being suggested by people. It doesn't mean she's considering it.
And then at one point, Deval Patrick responds to all of these rumors and says, everyone needs to calm down. It's early. It's so early.
No, it's not. You're about to lose. Right now, Warren is in the best position. That's why Bloomberg canceled fundraisers for other Democrats because he's thinking of going in the race himself. And my favorite part of the story, I mean, there's so many great parts of the story, is
Hold on.
they say that
Gotta watch
Democrats on Wall Street are worried about Elizabeth Warren, so they're encouraging Bloomberg to run because they think that their 3 voters might actually win the election. Good luck with that, okay? Yeah, Bloomberg coming in like a white knight saying, don't worry, billionaires, I will save you. I will not let any progressive do a wealth tax or give health care to Americans. You think that's a winning strategy, you schmucks? But in their world, they're so insulated. They're in their little billionaire bubble, and they think, oh yeah, Bloomberg's so popular. I bet the country will love that billionaire who says we should protect other billionaires. Oh, that's such a good idea. Oh, Mike, you gotta get in, Mike. For all the billionaires out there, there's like 7 of us or so. I bet we win the election. Okay, good luck with that. Come on, Mike, the water's warm. Come get your ass kicked and see how it turns out for you.
So the way that establishment Democrats sell this, having someone else join late in the race to represent the centrist in the party is, well, only a centrist could beat Donald Trump. If Elizabeth Warren wins the nomination, she's 100% going to lose to Donald Trump. But,
idiots.
But here's the thing. First of all, we've been through this not too long ago, and Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. She lost to a reality show clown, okay? Wears his red nose every morning before he goes out there and embarrasses the American people. And Hillary Clinton lost to that. And so now you're gonna propose that Hillary Clinton run again? No, she needs, go
It's just a proposal. It's like, we want her to run.
away, go enjoy your life, stop making ridiculous comments about other candidates while you're giving podcast interviews. And I mean, there's a reason why you have people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, at the top, polling really well.
So, the person apparently most seriously considering entering the race is Hillary Clinton.
Oh, God, it's just so annoying and devastating. Like, go away.
So she's on a book tour, and she's purposely, as we told you just a couple of days ago, when I saw her making the comments about like, don't tempt me to get back in the race, when she tweeted that out, I said, oh no, she's not joking. She's testing the waters. Okay, and so it turns out now the New York Times reporting, yes, testing the waters and seriously considering it. But her, okay, I get it. Look, if I was her, I'd want a rematch. And I understand her drive, and I understand her anger, I understand all of that, right? And to some degree, I respect it. But for the Democratic donors to think, oh, our white knight will come in and save us, it'll be Hillary Clinton. Because the country wants a centrist like Hillary. We just did that election. But see, that's what I'm talking about, guys. They're so biased, they can't see straight. They think, I got it, genius idea. The one person who could beat Donald Trump is the one person who lost to Donald Trump. They genuinely believe that. They genuinely believe it. That's how insanely biased they are. And then they're like, oh, you guys, well, you want to help the average American, so you're biased. No, well, that's kind of how you win elections. So now let me get to the rest of them. Now, John Kerry lost to George W. Bush. And he's like, oh, maybe I should enter the race. Biden's faltering. And so they think, oh, Biden had a couple of missteps. No, it isn't about the missteps. If it was about the missteps, why isn't Kamala Harris doing amazing? There's 25 people in the race, or there was at one point. Why isn't any of the other establishment candidates doing great? Why isn't Klobuchar doing great? John Delaney? Why is John Hickenlooper? Why do you get embarrassed and get run out of town? Because your ideas suck, and they're not popular. But they're like, no. If Biden said the right sentences, then he would win. But it's because, he had a little misstatement, and that's why Biden's losing. No, Biden is now beginning to lose, and every other establishment candidate is losing because we don't like your ideas of only helping the rich and only helping your donors. Well, now they should be excited about Buttigieg, right? First of all, another underlying theme of this article is Kamala Harris is done. All these donors love Kamala Harris. They've now totally given up on her. Okay, and they thought, it's perfect. This is going to lead to another part of this. That's an African American we could hide behind. Okay, and now, damn it, we couldn't hide behind her. If you notice, 3 of the people that they mentioned, African Americans. If you notice,
I put it in 1.5 speed. That's why he sounds like Ben Shapiro.
Criticism of Buttigieg was we like him a lot, and he would definitely protect our money, but he's not doing.
You should animate this. Oh my God, the evilness in the air. It'd be perfect for a Halloween special. Oh my God, guys. Oh, what if I did a Halloween special of Kyle covering the story? Halloween's like next week. There's no way I could do that. There's no way I could do that quickly. But that would be kind of funny. Do a Halloween special of Hillary Clinton entering the race. And she's just seen as this like undead zombie.
Doing well with African American voters. So can we find another African American to hide behind? Deval Patrick, where are you? Right? So now, look, I'm not blaming the people they named. They're not in the race, right? So I'm not blaming Deval Patrick, Michelle Obama, or anyone else, or Eric Holder. Now, if they get in to be a white knight for the rich donors, well, that's a different issue, okay? But right now, they haven't done that. It's not their fault. But these rich donors are looking around. And so apparently, they're worried about Buttigieg, too. So if you're worried about every single establishment candidate in the race, why do you think a different establishment candidate will do any better?
Right.
It isn't about the misstatements. It's about the substance and the policy.
Exactly. I mean, when we're dealing with a widening inequality gap, when we're dealing with people who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, who are going bankrupt because of the high cost of healthcare, telling American voters, we're not going to do much for you because it's too hard, is not a message that anyone's buying. It's not a message that inspires people or gets them to the polls. You got to give them something to vote for. And I feel like the establishment Democrats.
My
are still
computer would
the mindset
explode
of,
if I did
we're
that for
gonna
Ben Shapiro.
run against Trump. That's our message. We're going to run against Trump, but that's not good enough. You need to inspire people. You need to give them something to vote for.
Two last things, guys. The New York Times, it's actually a great story. I'm glad they did it. That's why we care about the reporting, care about good reporting. But it is missing important context. They say, well, one of the other times that people were looking for a white knight was back in 2004 when Howard Dean was the leading candidate. I wonder why those are the two times that the rich Democratic donors panicked, when Howard Dean, who was at the time a strong progressive, had the lead. And now when Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are in the top three and Warren is taking the lead, the progressives have the lead. And again, the rich donors panic. But yet the article's written like, oh, they're just worried for no reason. They're worried that they might not be able to beat Trump. No, they're worried about the money. They're worried about progressives actually winning and that affecting their taxes and all the other things that they care about. Write about it in reality. In the real world, the billionaire donors on Wall Street are concerned that the progressive might actually win. And finally, I get to Sherrod Brown. What a deep, deep disappointment. And also the unions.
I don't think I have time for that, but I think that would be that was a. It never even crossed my mind that she would run again. Yeah, it's a 22nd. I don't have time for that, but that would have been a cool thing to do. It's literally like almost like like a week and a half away. That would have been a cool episode, but because Kyle never covered it. If Kyle had covered it, I would have been like, maybe, but it's Thanksgiving. Yeah, I guess, but like a Christmas special with like, maybe a Christmas special where if Kyle covers it and he speaks to it, Hillary Clinton will be like seen as like Santa Claus or something. I don't know. But who knows?
So what people don't tell you is, they say, oh, the unions negotiated so hard to get these, healthcare benefits for their workers, and they care about their workers. Do they? Because in Bernie Sanders' proposals, in the Medicare for All bill and another bill that he proposed, what would happen is all those gains that they negotiated for would then go into their salary. Well, the union workers would love that. They would have free healthcare and they'd have a much higher salary. But the union leaders, who also make money from selling insurance, would have less money.
Can I also jump in on that real quick? Because healthcare shouldn't be tied to anyone's job. And for people who are making this argument about how
a secular
the unions
Christmas
negotiated
special
hard and they got the healthcare that they deserve.
Maybe.
Keep
That
in
might
mind
be a
that
good
those
idea.
striking GM workers lost their healthcare coverage because they were striking. So that's, and by the way, their pensions are in jeopardy, all of those things. So again, it shouldn't be tied to the work that you do, and that healthcare can be snatched away in a heartbeat, and that's exactly what happened to those striking workers.
I understand why some of the corrupt Democrats who take money from the unions would want to protect some of the corrupt union leaders. I don't understand why the reporters want to protect them. You guys want to do any stories about how the unions make a ton of money from health insurance, and that perhaps that might be their motivation? I haven't heard a peep. Apparently, now look, I gave New York Times credit earlier, but they can't find an investigative reporter in the building to go and chase that down. Washington Post, where are you? You think Sherrod Brown is the union's man in the Senate. Now that leads him to being progressive on a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, when the unions who give him all his money say to him, hey boy, we want you to be against Medicare for all, Sherrod Brown comes in now in this article, he's like, well, we can't have a candidate who's for Medicare for all. We can't have people getting health care in this country. What happened? I thought you were a big progressive. It turns out you're not a big progressive. You just do the same thing that other politicians do. You go where the money is. It's just in your case, instead of corporate money, it's union money. That's why you got to get all of the money out. Wolf-pack.com. Until you get the money out, see, Wolfpack is not part of it. They don't give a damn. They're going to take the corporate money out. They're going to take the union money out. They're going to take the Koch brother money out. And they're also going to take the Soros money out. That's why both Republicans and Democrat voters, not politics, the politicians hate Wolfpack, but the voters love it because they want all this corrupt money out. So Sherrod Brown says, no, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I take union money, not corporate money, and I do as they tell me. That is not innocent. And if Sherrod Brown gets into this race, it'll be the worst mistake.
Hold on. Robert Acosta. Hillary Clinton, according to two people close to her, has not ruled out jumping in herself, a sign that she is hearing similar dissatisfaction. Oh my God, guys. What's going on? What is happening right now? Oh my God.
Of his life. He'll be embarrassed, he'll get 0% of the vote, and we'll know exactly where he stands. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive.
That was scary, guys. And just in time.
That's exactly what happened.
This news. This news is fitting with Halloween coming up. Oh shit.
No, vision is not good enough to own things. You have to actually mix your labor with the land.
But we still are. But and that depends on which side of the Mississippi you're on as to what that is.
Well,
I mean, this doesn't seem like a system to me. It seems a little bit arbitrary.
Well, there's a system here if you look at it more sympathetically. Namely, you look at how the people actually farm. And let's say they come from Ireland, and or Britain or France or wherever, and how do they farm there? Well, they put plants, corn plants every foot. Well, then, given that the eastern Mississippi is sort of like France in terms of having a certain amount of water, well, then you follow that policy. So there is a system, and the system does not allow you to own as far as you can see, and it doesn't allow you to own, you put a corn plant every acre. You put a corn plant every acre, you own the foot around each corn plant.
I think the facial expression is done.
So there is a system. I wouldn't say it's arbitrary, but I would say it's a continuous sort of a thing. We have a continuum problem. Let me talk about the continuum problem for a second, if I may.
Sure.
If you go to bed with a 5-year-old girl, you're guilty of statutory rape, even if she agrees, because we don't think that she is capable of agreement. On the other hand, if you go to bed with a 25-year-old woman and she agrees, we don't think it's statutory rape because we think that the women of 25 years old are perfectly capable of giving consent. Well, what about the 15-year-old girl? Oh, what about the 14 or the 16? Where's the right point to have statutory rape? And the answer coming from me, and I think most people, is it's sort of a continuum. It's arbitrary. If you pick 15 years and 6 months, well, how about 15 years and 7 months? There's no one right answer, and that's the sort of a thing that is occurring in how intensive or extensive does the homesteading have to be. You just can't say, well, it has to be this extensive or it has to be that. But we know that a 5-year-old girl is way over on one side of the line and a 25-year-old girl is way over on the other side of the line, just as we know that if you put one plant every square mile, you're not homesteading, and if you put one plant every foot, then you are. And well, how about every half acre, or how about every quarter acre? It's a continuum problem. There's no right answer, or rather, there's no non-arbitrary answer, but it's not an arbitrary system.
See, I think this gets to the heart of one of the things that I find most problematic about libertarianism is that I agree with you. The where we draw the line in terms of statutory rape is arbitrary. It's simply in our society, we find it at one point, in another society, or at another time, it could be at a different point. It is a determination that is made in many respects
comparison.
by. I mean, I guess sort of it is arbitrary and subjective. And that's the thing that I ultimately find about libertarianism, is that at the end of it, once you get down to the basis, someone has decided on what measure arbitrarily or based upon, and by arbitrarily, I'm not saying whimsically, but I'm saying based upon whatever their culture says, that this is going to be the legitimate property right in this instance, or this is going to be the legitimate use of aggression, and it is arbitrary. And despite the fact that libertarians ultimately say this is simply just a logical construct, at one point it's just where a libertarian wants to decide to sort of plant the flag. In this case, this is where we're going to decide property is legitimate. And this is where we're going to decide that the use of force is legitimate. And that's why I think, to a certain extent, I find it, it's interesting to talk about, but it's really just not useful beyond the fact that we've decided on X, and that's what X is going to be. I think that is, often like a function of a democracy, and hopefully the democracy is working. I think there are times where we can have these calculations made because there's a failure of democracy. But again, that's just my arbitrary perspective, and then you let it hash out. But it seems like libertarians try and rely on some sense that there's a logical, these things follow logically, but at the end of the day, you've got to just make an arbitrary decision.
Well, I think if I'm going to convert you to libertarianism, it's going to be consequentialist or utilitarian libertarianism, not deontological, because even though you do have a flair for the logic and the reductio ad absurdum, I think at bottom you're really a consequentialist or utilitarian. And by that, I don't mean to criticize you.
I don't take it as one.
No, good. In our email, we said we would talk about other things besides
Yes,
property, and
yes.
so far
I'm
we've
sorry.
only talked
Well,
about property.
let's-
We've only, like we were going to talk about vaccinations or minimum wage or things like that, but we're almost out of time, so we're probably not going to get to that. But I just wanted to say that I hope you invite me back on your program, because most of the interviews I do are with libertarians doing the finer points of libertarianism, and which is roughly what we did today. But I think in future, if we discuss other issues such as vaccinations or minimum wage or whatever, you won't be roughly being so interested in internal libertarian discussions. And another point is, you see, I've been defending the anarchist libertarian position, and you don't much like that. I think if I'm going to convert you to libertarianism, it's going to be as a minarchist, because then minarchists believe in democracy, they believe in national governments, they believe in all these sorts of things. And the solution to how intensive or extensive the homesteading would have to be under the minarchist or the constitutionalist would be, well, the Supreme Court ultimately, or maybe each state court. And I think that would be something you'd be much more comfortable with.
Certainly more comfortable than not, but I would even go beyond minikernists to what we needists is what I basically come down to.
That's a good one. What we need is.
Let's touch on vaccines. It's been in the news. I don't know. I know that in the past that you were an advisor for Congressman Ron Paul. I don't know if you're an advisor to Senator Rand Paul, but he had some comments about vaccines the other day. And I'm curious as to what your perspective is on vaccinations.
Well, with all due respect to you, not as a philosopher, but as a radio host, we've only got a few minutes, and that issue is probably worth a whole hour too. But since you ask, I'll give you the 1 minute answer, and that is that among libertarians there's a big dispute. Oh, yes, I am sort of an indirect advisor to Rand Paul as well through one of his top lieutenants. My view is that at least in some cases, and I don't know about measles, it would depend upon the specifics, that it would be justified to compel people to have vaccinations or inoculations or whatever, whereas most libertarians, Rand Paul and Ron Paul and pretty much everyone who writes for LouRockwell.com and whoever writes for Target Liberty, they take a different view than me, and they take the view that it's up to the parent or something like that.
Oh, so you do, I mean, and yeah, this is all sort of stipulated on the notion that vaccinations are safe, which, obviously there's some people disagree. I don't, but that vaccinations are safe. So you have no problem. And when you advise Rand Paul on this, or through one of his lieutenants, as you say, is it on libertarian terms, or is it just simply on public policy terms?
Both.
What is the libertarian terms?
Well, the way on vaccinations, you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, to me, take the case of Typhoid Mary. Now, Typhoid Mary lacked mens rea. Mens rea is like a guilty conscience. She wasn't trying to give people typhoid. She didn't even know she had typhoid, but she was in some sort of restaurant or food bank or whatever.
And just as a libertarian this year for Halloween.
So the question is, do we, forget about anarchist libertarian for the moment, does the government, a legitimate limited government, have the right to go to her and say, look, Typhoid Mary, you are not a murderer, or at least not a first-degree murder because you lack intent, but you are engaging in manslaughter, and we've got to stop you. Now, you're not guilty. You're not a bad guy, so we're not going to put you in jail. We're going to put you in a nice hotel room or something, or and we'll feed you and give you a TV set if they had TVs in those days or whatever, and we'll get you food and clothing or whatever. But you got to stay out of circulation. You've got to be quarantined as long as you have it. Would they be justified in doing that? I would say yes. And I extrapolate from that and say, look, measles, Mary, you now have measles, and there are certain people who can't be inoculated, like pregnant women and babies under the age of 1 year old. And if you, go out into the streets, you're going to give these people measles or mumps or whatever it is, rubella, and some of these people are going to die. And do we have a right to use violence against you defensively? Because remember, we're not pacifists, and I would say yes.
Wow.
But Sam,
Professor, I got to say, I think you and I are in agreement on that, and it really, I think it puts into relief on some level. I mean, because you are by your own accord on the most pure end of the spectrum of libertarians, and it seems to me you're significantly more moderate on this point than Rand Paul.
Well, I wouldn't say moderate. I would say I'm more
reasonable,
compatible or consistent with the libertarian principle than he is. But again, I'm in the distinct minority among libertarians. Most libertarians wouldn't agree with me. But again, I don't say that it's true in the case of measles. I would say if the science were clear. And I'm not scientist enough, but Sam, I got to get off.
Oh, yes. Okay. Professor,
1 hour,
thank you so much.
And as I say, I hope you invite me again because I really enjoyed this, and I'd like to get out and talk to people that don't agree with me also.
Well, I appreciate your coming on, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Great. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
It didn't escalate. I'm a little disappointed, but it was a good conversation nonetheless. Let's see. What time is it? It's 11:30. Let's we'll do these 2 more videos. It's like 15 minutes total, and then we'll end the stream. This one is Rogan and Pacman address Sam Cedar's treatment of Dave Rubin.
Let's just play this Joe Rogan thing. It's pretty funny. And then we will go into the fun half. Apparently, David Pacman was on the Joe Rogan show sometime in the past couple of days, and they were talking about the demonetizing of Steven Crowder. And, we'll have more to talk about this in the fun half because, to me, just the idea that this is censorship is just absurd, particularly in Steven Crowder's case. I suppose theoretically, if there are people who are only relying on you, I just don't think it's when you demonetize somebody, suppose if you deplatform somebody, you could say that they're being censored in some fashion. But to demonetize, to me, doesn't seem that way at all. But here is Joe Rogan asking if harassing Carlos Maza has an equivalency on the left. And I will say this, that the harassment of Carlos Maza, I think, has been overstated as a reason for YouTube's action. I think it's just the general gay bashing, which has been problematic. Michael yesterday read the terms of service of YouTube, and there are protected classes of people in our society. Their protections are only not as individuals, but as classes of people. So let's use this as a jumping off point. Here is David Pacman with Joe Rogan.
Is that different, in your opinion, than someone singling something out for what you believe is their mental incompetency?
Well, mental incompetent. Do you mean that they're ignorant, or that they're mentally ill or cognitively limited?
Cognitively limited, mocking their ability to think, mocking their intelligence, mocking their decisions, mocking the way they talk, and then encouraging other people to do the same thing. And then that person gets harassed based on their intelligence, based on their performance on particular YouTube videos and conversations. And there's active harassers. There's people that do that. Is there a difference between, say, what Sam Cedar does to Dave Rubin?
What does Sam do to Dave Rubin?
He has.
I don't know that I've seen that video.
Dozens of videos. Don't say that video. He has dozens of videos where he's just dunking on Dave Rubin.
So I have some as well. I believe that they are substantive. That's my view, is that my videos about Dave Rubin are substantive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really watch any left-wing stuff because I want to try to isolate myself enough to make sure that what I'm saying are my ideas and that I'm not taking them. So Sam's a friend of mine.
Sounds like a comic.
And that's interesting. Yeah.
Comics do that.
I don't know, but if there's some specific examples, we could comment about them. But I think that to your first question, there is a difference between going after someone for sexual orientation, than going after them for the fact that they say things that are wrong or don't know stuff, until you're making fun of someone who has an actual handicap of some kind, some kind of cognitive limitation that would be a disability of some kind. Then you are mocking someone for a disability.
But the resulting effect of the harassment, see, this is what I was getting at before with Crowder. Like, what Crowder said was one thing, but one of the things that Carlos Mesa was discussing was what the people that had watched Crowder, what they were doing, how they were going after.
All right. Well, I mean,
raises some serious questions about our ethical responsibilities if Dave Rubin is indeed a touched individual.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that Dave Rubin is, has any type of particular limitations beyond what appears to be a lack of research or reasoning or thoughtfulness about what he does. Now,
Sounds like limitation.
Let me just address a couple of things. One, it's true. We do have dozens of videos dunking on Dave Rubin, but it is not because Dave Rubin is anything other than a commentator who is saying stuff that is nonsensical. I don't criticize Dave Rubin for anything other than either misrepresenting the truth, being completely unknowledgeable, but very confident about putting out opinions about stuff, misrepresenting his positions, and for laundering people who have really horrible detrimental effects on society. The idea that Dave Rubin is harassed online, I'm not worried about Maza being harassed online. People get harassed online all the time. I'm not even worried about the doxing insofar as it relates to Steven Crowder, because Steven Crowder, at least as far as I know, has not called for him to be doxed. I think that would be irresponsible. The problem with what Crowder has done is and I think, basically I said this the other day before Rogan had made this point. When you are attacking someone based on the fact that they're gay or that they're of a certain ethnicity or a color or religion, whatever it is, gender, disability, you are poisoning society in a way that has implications for hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people. You are impacting the structure of society by criticizing and dunking on Dave Rubin because he keeps saying things that are not bright on YouTube or are demonstrably wrong or are demonstrably misinformed or are demonstrable misrepresentations does not have the societal implications. Well, I don't care if people call me names and
and also I just want to really underline it too, that even if Crowder did a bunch of videos saying, I think Carlos Mesa is dumb and I'm going to refute his points and make fun of him and do an offensive impression, that is still, first of all, that would not be an issue, and it is not what he's doing that got him on the radar.
Well, according to Joe Rogan, we are being ableist towards Dave Rubin.
Well, that's the thing I do want to say is I think Joe is opening up, especially for those of us in the studio who are more worried about these things, a very concerning point, which I have thought of from time to time myself, which is that if Dave has a real limitation, I'd like him to publicly say that. I will certainly change up at least my programming.
But we're not. If you're saying that he has some type of disability, but I don't think that. Maybe he does.
That's what I'm saying is I don't know. That was never articulated in that way in terms of Dave before. I don't want to. That would put a whole different paint job on it for me.
I believe the phrase Joe Rogan used was cognitively limited.
If Dave Rubin is cognitively limited, then I will do a slightly different impression.
But I'm not even. I don't. Maybe we have. We have. In passing, said that he's cognitively limited. In reference to explain what he said. And maybe that is going a little too far. We could just simply say that he's just horribly ignorant to the issues, which I think is actually in many respects, and I've made this clear. I think even more reprehensible because you have a responsibility, in my mind. If you're going to go on with whatever he has, 1 million followers on YouTube, you've got to do your homework, and you have a responsibility. But that's the way I feel about that.
Yeah, and to be clear, the issue is the specific incitement around the specific category. Not mocking somebody, not making fun of them, not debunking them, not being mean, not being satiric, not having people tweet at them or whatever. It's the specific use. And again, even according in an incredibly strict sense, and I know we'll talk about it more later, but huge miscalculation by YouTube. They had a case, which is all Carlos Mesa asked for, on one person who in fact violated their own written terms of service, which you agree to these stupid things when you set up a channel. That's it. There's actually should be really nothing more to it as of this case.
Right. All right.
Right-wing caller, Trump, testicles, abortion, and so on. This will be the last video, guys, and we'll call it a night.
Go to...
It's like 10 minutes.
Turk Albert, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Phoenix area. I was just curious about something. You guys have been quoted as saying that Trump is a xenophobe and anti-immigration, and I'm just curious where you get the implication that Trump is against all immigrants and against people from all other countries.
Well, I don't think I've ever said xenophobe. I think I've said nativist.
I know at least Michael said it.
Okay.
He is absolutely xenophobic towards Mexican and Muslim immigrants. I don't think that's debatable.
No, xenophobe is a general term. The definition of xenophobe is hatred of people from other countries in general.
Oh, so you're saying that... All right, well, wait a second. Now, wait a second. To be fair, if you are saying that he just hates basically people from non-white countries, and you're saying that in defense of Trump, I think maybe
I stand corrected.
He has not spoken out against the Swedes
or his
or the
wife,
Finnish
or wherever he gets his wives.
Yes,
those countries.
Fair enough. Fair enough. He's only a racist in some ways.
No, because you guys take him out of context all the time.
Of course, I do. Right.
Yes.
Oh, and we're the only ones who have done that too.
Illegal. No, you guys aren't the only ones, which you guys certainly do it. And I do got to give you this. You're the only ones with balls enough to take calls.
Well,
which I will give you credit for that. But
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We are very proud of our testicles here, and actually all of our sexual organs that include the female ones too. So, what was the second question that you had?
Well, it was mostly the xenophobic and the immigration thing, but I'm trying to think what else. Since you guys are part of the PYT network, I just wanted to ask about your opinion on what Jimmy Dore said. I think it was December the 11th.
Wait, no. Let me just see. December the 11th, Jimmy Dore. Was that when he was this on air, or was this when he was ordering stuff at the Coffee, Tea, and Bean League?
No, this was when he was on air, when he was a panelist on PYT Live.
Yes.
He said that it was, quote, morally incumbent upon conservatives to, quote, shoot a place up if they suspected that babies were being murdered and their parts were being sold. I was just wondering your opinion on those comments.
Well, I think his point is that if you think that there are babies being murdered somewhere and that they are being harvested for their baby parts, it's pretty, it seems to me that...
How long is this animation going to be? Like lengthwise? Probably 3 minutes. Because it's going to include the roughly... How long is this? I've done like a minute of animation. More or less a minute of animation. 3 seconds this whole time. And it's going to include gameplay. So it's going to cut to the TV, which is going to play gameplay of, what I'm suggesting or what I'm commenting on, like certain moves, doing certain things, and, just dunk them. You're going to show them dunk them and stuff. So that's going to play for a few seconds, and then it's going to cut to the animation portion. So we have a minute of animation, and usually I've done 2 of these before in the past, and usually they're around 3 minutes. So this will probably be around 3 minutes. So it won't be 3 minutes of animation, but it'll be 3 minutes long, like lengthened by that gameplay portion. So did he also say secular talk? I don't think he said secular. He said TYT network. I don't think he said secular talk. Could be wrong though.
One would, if one genuinely believed that you would be you would be morally compelled to do something about it. Now, I guess it's conceivable that I like to think that I would be morally compelled if I felt that if I was walking by a store, or let's say, and I looked in and I saw them killing babies and harvesting them for their baby parts. I'd like to feel that, if I felt that was wrong, that it would be incumbent upon me, maybe not necessarily to shoot the place up, but to go in and try and sabotage. I think on some level, I like to think I would do that.
Well, doing something about it, I agree, but he was very specific in what he was saying, and he said this in more than one way, but I can't quote you directly in the other ways he said it, but he said it in the same comment. So basically what this is him saying, in a specific context, a domestic terrorist act.
Dude, wait a second. Hold on for a second. Wait a second. Let me just ask you a question. Because since you raised the issue of our testicles here, taking calls, is this the best you got? We sit here and we allow our testicles, excuse me for a second. Excuse me, let me finish. We put our testicles out there for you to look at and to in some ways, be around by calling in. And the best you got is a quote about from Jimmy Dore 5 days ago, because you didn't like the specificity in which he felt that you should morally take on. Let me ask you this: do you think baby parts and babies are being killed and murdered, and that their parts are being harvested on a daily basis?
Abortion is murder. That is unequivocal. That is my position.
Okay, so what are you doing about it?
I'm electing people who want to.
Are you serious? Are you serious? You're dealing with an ongoing murder and slaughter in this country by electing people who have proven to you time and time again that they're not going to reverse it? Are you serious?
They have constantly said they want to reverse Roe versus Wade.
Wow.
And that is
so you're telling me that the conservative mantra is, if you see a murder happening, go out and elect somebody who will stop it, perhaps, or at least, vaguely promise they'll stop it. Is that what you're telling me what the conservative mantra is? Let me tell you something about your testicles, sir. Let me tell you something about your testicles.
Complimented our testicles, relax.
Well, no, he complimented ours, but I think justifiably so. But I'm just trying to provide with you the same level of honesty that you're coming back to us. And I find your testicles to be lacking, sir.
How are my testicles lacking for wanting to?
Your testicles are lacking, and I think it's clear.
Not
How
robust,
are they lacking when I want to elect people to make this country better by stopping the murderous practice? This
Wait,
was
better
done
is one
completely
thing,
by
but a
the
murderous
Democratic
practice?
Party.
My God.
They sit there and they declare people not people for their own political agenda, like slavery when the Democrats did it to the blacks, when they were considered 3/5 of a person. I'm sorry, but babies are not 0% of a person, 3/5 of a person. They are 100% people.
They're 100% people. And what rights do we afford them? What can they? If they're people,
The rights of any infant.
And what point should we give them?
Inside womb.
What point should we give them those rights? At conception?
Yeah, upon the initiation of a pregnancy. If you terminate.
What
a
are you
pregnancy,
doing
that's
about
hard.
in vitro fertilization? Are you aware that there are literally every day hundreds, if not thousands, of embryos that are discarded because of in vitro fertilization?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Are you aware of that, sir?
Yeah, I'm just.
You are. Wait a
definition
second. Wait a second.
shows
So, are you against in vitro fertilization?
Yeah, if you initiate a pregnancy and you terminate it.
Excuse me. Are you against in vitro fertilization? This is a very specific question that should be very easy for you to answer. But you know what I suspect? And perhaps I'm wrong. You don't even know what I'm talking about. So you actually think that there are murders going on, but by your own very definition, there's a whole world of murders going on that you haven't paid attention to. And you know why you haven't? Because whatever garbage radio program you listen to, whatever garbage site that you go to get your information on, they haven't talked about it because they know it's a difficult question because they don't want to attack in vitro fertilization. Because at the end of the day, this is just about sexuality. They don't care if this embryo exists in a test tube. They don't care about that. Really? Am I? Be honest.
Yeah, you just speculate.
What do you know about in vitro fertilization? What am I talking about?
I don't know the specific definition of
Good
that word, but what I'm
day,
telling you
sir.
is
Check your
that-
testicles and call us back.
Eat some proteins.
Unbelievable.
Sorry, dude. Yeah, that was brutal.
In
I actually
vitro
felt-
fertilization.
I felt bad for him in that
In
one.
vitro
That's okay.
fertilization,
I didn't even
where
know
you
what
have
that is.
fertilized eggs.
Ew.
No.
Gross.
That are thrown out when they are not used.
Yoink.
And this guy doesn't even know about it, and he considers it murder on an ongoing basis?
Well, just general
These
murder.
frozen
man. I don't even know the
embryos are
specifics of
people,
murder.
according to him. These frozen embryos are people,
Hey,
according to
following
him.
that,
And he's not even aware
following
of it.
the logic of that argument, I mean, some of the things that might, I don't want to be too gross here, but his
I didn't know
his
what it is
masturbatory
either.
emissions might be people as well.
All I'm saying is, don't call into this program, talk about my testicles, and show up without a pair yourself, unless you have ovaries.
Even if it's a compliment.
It doesn't matter. You just don't talk about mine.
I like the xenophobia thing though. That was good. He got a retraction.
Yeah.
Like it's very specific. Dude doesn't like Mexicans and Muslims.
That's right.
Slovenian models, cool.
It might be
They can
right,
come
but
in the
I just think
country.
like who in history has been xenophobic to literally everyone in the world? Like, does that exist?
That's a good
even?
point.
Like, or is that word just not even?
You know, it's
useful?
really unfair
Typical
to Hitler.
Democrats.
I think that's really unfair to Hitler because I mean I think he respects Japanese a lot. You know, it's just called it xenophobic. It's totally unfair. Just talk about the Jews and the Gypsies,
well,
handicapped and and they're not even outside the country. Treats the Italians with respect. You're really distorting the issues.
Oh my god, I found some videos that I want to watch. I found some extra videos. It's when they fertilize like outside the womb, just like I just did a quick Google search. When they fertilize an egg outside the womb. Did not know that. Let's watch oh man. So many good ones. Let's watch two more. I'm addicted. This one is Insane Rant, My Problems with Sam Cedar. Let's go. And then we have another one that's caller, Trump's Appeal as an Outsider. You can sell your eggs for $10,000 a pop, kind of crazy. Yeah, I've heard about that, yeah. Can we just like abort people to like Iron Sky? Just Dark Side of the Moon? So let's watch these two more.
all right, folks. It's time for...
I love the music.
This is my problem, or my problems, with Sam Cedar. Today's entry comes from a YouTuber. We don't need to give him the extra clicks. We're going to play it here.
Dude, you know what'd be funny? When Sam's a Libertarianator, he should be playing this song instead of like dun 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 dun. It should be this song. It should be. Oh my god, this is. I am building up to something that's going to be amazing. Probably the best thing I'm ever gonna do is have Sam Cedar. I'm keeping this music, yeah. Is Sam Cedar becoming a Terminator and destroying other libertarians? That's gonna be the greatest thing I've ever done. Seriously.
All right, let's tune in.
Another problem with Sam Cedar right there.
Yes.
Not feeding him the traffic.
I'm giving him.
And you guys are the first to hear about it.
For next time. Here it is. Okay, here it is. My problems with Sam Cedar.
So this is kind of my issue with Sam Cedar and kind of closing out the whole concept of controlled opposition. Sam Cedar is a rabid anti-Semite. And you can say, oh, he's Jewish. Well, I don't know if he is, to be entirely
He just called him an anti-Semite.
honest.
Hold on. I need to rewind this.
Here it is. My problems with Sam Cedar.
What the fuck?
So this is kind of my issue with Sam Cedar and kind of closing out the whole concept of controlled opposition. Sam Cedar is a rabid anti-Semite. And you can say, oh, he's Jewish. Well, I don't know if he is, to be entirely honest. If I met his mother and she told me she was Jewish and her mother was Jewish and her mother was Jewish, okay, he's Jewish. However, just because you say you're Jewish doesn't make you Jewish. To convert is a big fucking process. It's not like Christianity. It is a trial. It is hard work to convert to Judaism. So if he converted, good for him. I don't imagine he did. If he says he was born into it, well, A, prove it. B, show me how the traditions were carried down that taught you what happened in your cultural history and how it frames the state of mind of the world around you and how it frames your state of mind. And, that's kind of where you start to run into some issues where he is very anti-Israel. And a lot of us are well aware now that the anti-Israel thing is just code for anti-Jew. You're trying to say you're anti-Israel and you're against Israel's war policy, and that's the only policy you can ever bring up, Sam. That's the only fucking policy of Israel's you have ever brought the fuck up, because you don't know a damn bit of shit about their domestic fucking policy. Because I know a little bit about their domestic policy. Do you know when Occupy was happening, people over there started striking because the price of their foods were too high? You know what they want? They want cheaper cheese. They want cheap cheese. That's us Jews. We want cheap cheese. But, you must not have even noticed that, because I noticed you never said a damn thing about it. You've never reported on it. And, it is an interesting highlight by comparison. They were also, by the way, striking things relating to health care formula, the cost of raising children. Israelis love their children. They want to have 3 children apiece, 4 children, 5 children. I've been in apartments where they have 7 fucking kids. All right?
Okay. So, hold on. Now, wait a second. Unfortunately, my mother's mother has passed away. Alva Shalom. Her mother also, may she rest in peace, has passed away. And her mother also passed away well before I was born. So there's no way I can prove to this gentleman that I am Jewish in that regard.
Oh my God.
Many of us were circumcised just medically. Doctors occasionally will do this, even if you're not Jewish. Of course, my bar mitzvah, a lot of people will do that just to get the U.S. savings bonds. So it's very difficult for me to prove that I'm Jewish. I will say, however, in my defense, that I don't think that I am anti-Israel per se. But I will, I will say that we did, in fact, report on the protests in Israel. I don't know if they were necessarily happening during Occupy. I think they were happening sometime between Occupy and the Arab Spring, but they were protests against a lot of the neoliberal policies that were taking place.
I have to replay after we watch this. I have to replay the laugh. Oh my God, the laugh they had.
and Israel. Lawyer Matthew just disinvited me to Passover dinner this year, questioning my Jewish bona fides. But I will say this. I was horribly offended by the implication that Jews want cheap cheese. And I accuse you, sir, of being anti-Semitic by your claiming of Jews wanting cheap cheese. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's some type of code, but nothing like you and your John Birchers getting together talking about Jews and their cheese. Now,
And there's 7 effing kids.
and there's 7 effing kids.
That's what Israelis want. They just want to have 7 effing.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Now, folks, we're going to make this a regular feature. So we are calling on you, our listeners, to post on YouTube your problems with Sam Cedar. Please call it My Problems with Sam Cedar. We will play a new one. I don't know if we'll do it daily, but maybe weekly. The best one that we get over the next couple of weeks will be featured in our fundraising campaign. So make them good, folks. I'm ready to address all of your problems with me, Sam Cedar.
Yeah, it is a trial. Yeah,
We did, in fact, U.S. savings bond has passed away.
3 children apiece, 4 children, 5 children. You know, I've been.
Okay. So, hold on. Now, wait a second.
Yo, they're dying. Listen to this laughter.
Apartments where they have 7 fucking kids. All right.
Okay. So, hold on. Now, wait a second. Unfortunately, my mother's mother.
Oh my God.
Okay. So, hold on. Now, wait a second. Unfortunately, my.
Oh my God, this video is great. All right, one more. Caller, Trump's appeal as an outsider. I need to know the name of that song. I need to know where they found that song. I need to know the name of it. I need to know where I can download it. I need to use it.
Calling from a 262 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Actually, I'll be right back, guys. One second. I have to use the bathroom. Let us continue.
Hello?
Hello? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Milwaukee.
Milwaukee? What's going on? What's your name?
My name is Dee.
Dee?
I have a lot to say, and I'm sure I only have a few seconds to say it in. I think the biggest thing I want to say, I was listening to the interview with Matt, and people seem to be really sort of stupefied over why Donald Trump is sort of getting the visceral mob mentality that he gets, and I think it's actually pretty simple, but nobody seems to be talking about it, in my opinion. And that is, Donald Trump, I know people are going to say this is totally un-PC of me, but Donald Trump is the other. In spite of all his billions of dollars, give or take a few million, and all of the things he says, he's the one that, even with all his money, couldn't quite buy his way into being respected, accepted, whatever. And his voice resonates with millions of people who feel the same way. And nobody seems to be addressing how easy it would be to sort of welcome those people back to the table in a sensible way, instead of, comedy shows sort of make fun of people like that, like you did the thing with Sargon a couple, 2-3 days ago, I think it was, or 2 days ago. And, it's fine. I love comedy. I love British humor in particular. It's great at taking the pee out of people. But there's no real sort of sense of saying to these people they have a legitimate place at the table. These are people that work. They pay their taxes. Whether you agree with what they say or don't say, they're largely representative of the other, if I'm making sense. I'm probably not articulating.
No, I think let me rephrase your argument to you and tell me if I'm doing it justice. And in some ways, you're making it's interesting you say you cite British comedy, because in some ways you're sort of making this argument that even though Trump is so wealthy, he has an underclass, if you will, or a working class sensibility. And because he's very Queensy, I guess, Queens-ish, I should say, not, from Queens. And that he's got a sort of a blue collar air to himself. And that on some level that speaks to people who, regardless, are not taken seriously and are left behind by the elites and by the sort of smarter than thous. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yes. And can I add a little bit to that?
Please. I'm just restating your argument.
No, you did great, much more succinctly than I did too. I guess that's why you're the host. But no, I think the other thing is it's not conspiratorial. It's not like there's some big plot, which everybody likes to think of all the time. I think there's no elite that goes around saying, I'm going to make people feel smaller than me or less than me. There's a lot of things you could talk about here. You could go way deep and talk about the psychology of being victimized. And well, let me share a personal anecdote. I think it'll sum me up actually better than all my babbling here. Very personal. I'm not going to go into detail. But when I was a young girl, I was abused. And I was abused by a deacon of my local church. Years later, 30 years later, he had passed away. He'd been heralded as this great hero in the church, and I got a bulletin about what a wonderful man he was, and yada, yada, yada. Of course, that didn't sit well with me, so when my
So Sam Cedar is going to come into Kyle's world, because Kyle's world is invaded by libertarians, and the libertarians are going to be L1000s, the libertarian version of T1000s, and then Sam Cedar is going to come to Kyle's world and then destroy the Terminators for him. That's what I'm thinking he's going to do.
Grandmother passed. The pastor of that church did her service, and I made an appointment with him after the funeral to go and talk with him. I didn't have any other agenda than I simply wanted to let him know what had happened to me those 30 years ago. Now, this was when I was a young girl. I'm an adult now, moved basically past it. And the pastor basically said to me in that meeting, well, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but we wouldn't want to upset his family or the church, but thanks for coming. And basically it was a proverbial pat on the head and a kick out the door. And it infuriated me. I didn't want anybody to beat anybody up. I didn't really want anybody to do anything. I wanted to know that I had been heard and that somebody understood it, and if not empathized, sympathized, and cared that had happened to me. That's all I wanted, and I didn't get that. And I think there are millions of people in America right now who feel like they have no political voice. They're laughed at because they can't use the proper framing or words. You can say, how can you vote if you don't know what the three branches of government are, for example? But there are people who, they just don't know those things because of their situation, their culture, whatever it is. And I think we should be working towards trying to bring them back to the table, and that would be an easy way to make Trump inconsequential,
right.
Finding a way to make these people feel like they have a voice.
Okay, let me.
Thank you for letting me babble.
All right, no, I mean, I think you have a point, but there's something I want to disagree with you on. I do think it is the case that the people that Trump is resonating with, in some level, experience and are aware of the fact that they're getting screwed in some way. Okay.
Yep.
But the fact is that reality is the reality for a much larger number of people than just those people who are attracted to Donald Trump. Okay. And on some level, maybe it's just simply because they don't know any better or know any other way. And I think that is the most charitable perspective. They articulate and channel and transfer this victimization, and it's legitimate. They are legitimately victims of a system on some level. And I'm broadly speaking here. I mean, you can predict the one group of people in this country whose life.
Yeah, I heard about that. The Catholic Church is in a priest shortage, and I heard they're going to allow their priests to marry because they're just the idea of having them just like be completely celibate is a major issue, obviously, in the Catholic Church because they're fucking touching little boys. So I heard they're going to start like allowing the priest to marry. So will that help the lack of touching little boys? Maybe. I don't know.
Expectancy is going the other direction, as opposed to extending, is basically white males age 50 or somewhere around there, in a certain socioeconomic strata, and they're basically killing themselves with drug abuse and alcohol abuse and whatnot presumably because their lives are so are miserable, and I think that's real. But the question really is, okay, even if I was charitable enough to say, okay, they're choosing to express this victimization in the only way they know how, which is to victimize other people, which is to say that our enemies are not the people who are really screwing us over, that guy Donald Trump. Even if it's out of sheer ignorance, that the only reason why they're relating to him is because he's expressing their frustration. Now, of course, Donald Trump doesn't have any of these problems. Donald Trump doesn't have to worry that that it's a zero-sum game for him, that women have more opportunity, or that African Americans have more opportunity, or that that minorities have any more opportunity. He doesn't lose. He's not a loser in this. He just expresses it. He just has all the vestiges so that it can actually, and Donald Trump at some level is proof that the way these people express it can live outside of that victimization quite well, right? Now, let me just,
that's the other side.
Well, let me just finish. And so then the question becomes, and I understand that, and many of these people certainly may not realize it. They don't realize that they're making a choice to transfer this anger towards those who are more vulnerable than they are on some level, even though they perceive these people as getting all the largesse and whatnot, and that they're not more vulnerable. They are more vulnerable. And even if I'm going to be charitable enough to do that, on a political level, the bottom line is no. The bottom line is we don't need, the reality is that those people, if it is the ignorance that allows them to do this transference, the amount of energy involved in reaching those people is not, if it even can be done, the amount of energy expended in there is wasted energy, the energy that could go other places if you want to make political change. That's my belief. And so, so when I mock Argon of Saqqad, and I think he's from a different sort of genre, because the fact is I've seen all his Twitter followers, and to a person, the idea that they were aggressive leftists, what he's basically saying is you're a leftist. None of them are leftists in any fashion whatsoever. They're not of the left, they're of the right. It doesn't matter to me. But I think there's a lot more value in mocking these people, politically speaking, and just simply defeating them.
But Sam, I'm not taking, first of all, can I clarify two things? One, I talked about victimization, and I wasn't being very clear because I'm a little nervous. I don't usually call into podcasts or talk shows, so I wasn't being particularly articulate. But I'm not saying that you give license to the victimization. You still have to. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you have to make choices, and the fact that I'm on the phone with you now sharing my opinions on this, given that story that I told you, tells you that I made some different choices about how I think, okay? So I'm not saying that in terms of political expenditure that we should go after soothing the wounds of these victimized people, and I may have given that impression. But what I'm saying to you is I believe there's some relatively simple things we could do that wouldn't require a lot of political expenditure or waste to at the very least disenfranchise Trump's message a little bit. And that would be, and I don't care that I think Bill Maher's hysterical and he kicks the pee out of people all the time, but there's no sort of recompense for these people. You got people like Dawkins talking to people who understand for hundreds of years they grew up, were born in a family that said you believe in a God in the sky and he's going to control your morality, your behavior. And you start to peel away those layers. Some of us get there quicker than others. We could argue probably for 16 conversations about all of the psychology of that. But
well, tell me what you think. I mean, look, I have no problem with people who don't believe in religion, and I don't know, D, if you have transferred that sense of what happened upon you to someone other than the people who really deserve your ire for how you were abused. and because you were abused, and undoubtedly, even decades later, you can see how there are people covering up for it. I mean, the amount of covering up that must have gone on contemporaneously is almost, I think, sickening to imagine. And
it's intolerable. Yeah.
But so tell me, what do you think? How you would how you would separate Donald Trump from those overall?
Well, okay. One more little anecdote, very short one that will probably answer that best. There was a young girl in our neighborhood who came from a very similar background to mine, sort of probably part of the socioeconomic strata that you're talking about for a lot of Donald Trump's followers, whatever, voters. And there I'm making them another too, but I'm saying she came from that socioeconomic background, and we were in the park one day. She was moving like a gazelle on the park equipment, and I said to her, I'm not going to say her name, you should be a gymnast, hon. And she looked at me, she's 11 years old, and she said, and I come from a pretty, it's not a poor area, certainly, middle class, typical middle class neighborhood. And she said to me, what's a gymnast? And she's 11, okay? And this is real. This happened not too long ago. Right. How can she aspire to be something other than what she is if she doesn't even know that those options are available to her, okay? And so I'm not saying we have to support the victimization of these people or give license to their crazy. You did a really good job with, what's his name, Alex Jones, tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, and you handled him really well. But you need to at least say, okay, I don't agree with some of your thinking, but you have some valid points here. We respect the fact that you work hard and pay your share of taxes. You can have a civil discussion and say something like, look, you might want the lid up, he wants the lid down, but at some point somebody's got to come halfway and sort of meet in the middle. And I don't see any of those sort of
because, you know, I understand your analogy with the gymnast, but I just don't think, I mean, and if I could sit down with every single person who ever voted for Donald Trump and who intends to and walk them through it, but, you know, I have run into those people, even in Brooklyn. And I'll tell you, I don't think it's just a question. They're aware that Bernie Sanders is out there. They're aware that these proposals are out there, but it's going to take a lot more time than we're going to have between now and the end of the year, in November, to be honest with you. I mean, I just think that that's not where people should be expending their energy. If it was just enough to say, hey, you know what? You don't really hate Muslims. You don't really hate Latinos. The problem is that for years we have been setting up an economic system that has been basically exploiting you. And when it needs you to fuel the engine, it sucks from you. And when it doesn't, it just expends you like the human body might some other form of nutrition. And I just think that you know, I understand what you're saying. And but you know, when I see those, when I see the pictures of the people shoving African American women around at their rally, my first thought isn't, boy, they really don't really understand why they're so angry. Yeah. And I think, and I understand not everybody's like that at there, but I've been wading through the sea at a Glenn Beck 9/12 rally or whatever it was, and I'll tell you something. There's a lot of lunacy and a lot of ignorance, and on some level, like, we've got to do some broader projects that aren't going to take their support to implement, frankly. That it's going to be done despite their resistance. That's my hope. But I appreciate the phone call, Dee. I really do.
Thank you for your time. I enjoyed the show.
Thanks. That was a great call. I enjoyed that call quite a bit.
All right. We need some iconic emotion. I mean, you need to say that both of men and women. It's not just women. It's also men, you know. I think that's a very broad statement. I don't think it's on one or the other to think more logically. Everyone should think more logically. I don't think it's just women. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's interesting hearing calls about like the election, like pre-Trump, in the while we're in the midst of the election. It's interesting to hear different perspectives. But all right, guys, I think we're gonna end it here. We're not gonna come back. Actually, I won't be back tomorrow. It's just me. We'll be back on Thursday because tomorrow I'm actually gonna go out to Korean barbecue with some friends and family. So yeah, no stream tomorrow. You know what? Yeah, I don't think we'll do a stream tomorrow. We'll take a break. I was gonna be like, we're gonna go out early. We'll do a late one, but I think we'll take a break for tomorrow, and then we'll be back Thursday. I'm gonna look up if I can watch this movie on Twitch without being like completely hammered on Twitch. The Iron Sky movie. We'll see. But Thursday we'll do some We'll do some character movement and you know, start wrapping this baby up. Have a good night, guys. Enjoy it, and I'll see you Thursday. Peace.